What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto had a bloodline that made women submit? With a glance. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. Hinata reached over and shut off the alarm. It was 5 am. She lay in bed a few more moments hugging the stuffed fox Naruto had won for her. Good morning Naruto, I love you. She squeezed the fox once more then set it aside and got out of their bed. The fox was really adorable and she felt closer to Naruto when she held the stuffed animal, but it was a poor substitute for Naruto's warmth and his strong arms. Hinata missed her fiancé. Padding over to the stove, Hinata cut it on to heat the water in the teapot then went to the bathroom to shower. She turned on the water to let it warm up then undressed. In moments she was enjoying a hot shower. A pang went through her as she wondered if Naruto would be having a hot shower wherever he was. I know you're strong and can take care of yourself, but I still worry about you Naruto. She pushed her worries to the back of her mind and finished showering. A towel around her ass, Hinata brushed her teeth then smoothed her body with cream to prevent dry skin. Skin now protected from the winter wind, she dried and brushed out her hair. It had grown longer and she debated cutting it or at least trimming it. It hung almost to her waist now. I'll wait for you Naruto. Maybe you'll like it long. She smiled at herself then left the bathroom to get dressed. Being alone like this was new. Even when she spent a lot of time by herself back at the estate, there was always someone around. At odd times, she would find herself talking to herself out loud. It embarrassed her at first but she'd gotten used to it, that and being without her man. Over her underwear, Hinata put on a warm lavender shirt, long black pants and ankle-high boots. She left off the coat until it was time to leave and went to make her breakfast. In silence she ate and drank her tea all the while looking at a picture of her and Naruto kissing while rolling about the skating rink. Seeing it was getting close to 6, Hinata finished eating, made the bed and donned her gray and lavender coat. Bye baby. She waved at the stuffed fox then hurried to go meet her team. Be safe Naruto wherever you are. The village had changed with the seasons as it was supposed to. Right after Naruto left, they'd been hit with a cold snap. Anything left green had died instantly. It was like Konoha and the Land of Fire knew he was gone and this was its protest. For weeks they'd shivered during the day and huddled under the covers at night. There had been rainstorms with strong winds. The wind had been so bad at times that many roofs had been torn off and several businesses had been ruined. One weekend there had even been a couple feet of snow and it had been way too early for snow. That first month of Naruto's absence had been miserable and it was remarked upon by many, even those who still hated him. Now things were back to normal, or how a winter in the village should be. There was still some bad weather but mostly they had a mild winter season. Konoha had resigned itself to not having Naruto as had she, but it had taken her that same cold, nasty month to do so. Hinata had surprised herself. Except for watching him leave, she hadn't shed a single tear. Naruto hadn't left her for good, he hadn't necessarily wanted to leave at all. Naruto left because he believed he had to. This training was for her and his parents and his brothers and sister, for all of Konoha. But just because she didn't cry didn't mean she didn't miss him with every breath she took. Hinata missed the little things like holding his hand or his hand on the small of her back when they were standing close to each other. She missed him calling her sweetheart and his beautiful blue eyes looking at her with love. Sometimes it hurt to miss him so much, but she didn't let it hold her back and she certainly never let herself cry. Hinata swore to stay strong and she would keep her word, that was their Nindo after all. Her breath was visible on the cold air as she hurried down the street. There were a few others up and about this time of morning and she smiled or nodded to them. Perfect strangers had sent her sympathetic looks right after Naruto left and her friends had been no exception. Hinata grinned as she remembered that first week. They had hovered around her worried that she would fall apart and miss Naruto so terribly that she wouldn't even be able to function. Before he left, Hinata had worried about that too. That moment when he'd told her no and pushed her away, Hinata thought her heart would break, but then as she watched him disappear, his body to her eyes, she glanced at his face. For a moment she'd hated herself, disgusted by her weakness. Naruto's face was tortured. She would be at home surrounded with family and friends while he was going off with only Jiraiya for company. All that he'd gained in the last months had to be put aside and forgotten. Naruto would miss all the good and the bad that happened in their lives, and while they would write to each other, it wasn't the same as him being there to sharing each moment with them. Hinata had watched him go and made a silent promise to him and herself. She would train like never before and come up with a true jutsu of her own, maybe more than one. She would spend time with everyone who loved him so that when he returned she could share every laugh, smile and tear with him. And she would be happy. Hinata knew Naruto would suffer if he learned that she had fallen into a depression because he wasn't there, so she did not cry, not another tear. That same day when she'd sparred with her father, Hinata knew she'd surprised him. It had lasted for 2 hours. She believed her father had planned to wear her down and maybe give her a reason to drop into an exhausted heap and forget the pain of being alone. Instead, she challenged him to beat her, and using her feelings of loss to push herself, the fight ended in a draw. Poor father. Hinata chuckled. Lord Hiyashi had been focusing a lot more on his own training lately in order to keep up with all 3 of his children. He was even learning the new moves she'd come up with, and that filled her with pride. Hanabi was already quite proficient at it too, though neither was as good as she was at it. Hinata beamed with satisfaction, and it showed in her face as people passed her in the street. Hinata couldn't wait for Naruto to see how strong she'd become, and not only in her ninja skills but socially. The shy girl she'd been was now only a memory. Not that she'd purposely tried to lose that persona, but that everyone else had rid her of it. Because she was Naruto's other half, everyone gravitated to her when they needed his brand of humor or just needed to touch base with him. Hinata found she could joke like him sometimes, and her smile became his of a twin of his. Now she understood why he liked to joke around so much. It felt really good to be the center of attention when everyone was happy and laughing with you. The academy came into view, and Hinata saw her teammates had already gathered. They would get in 2 hours of training before they started work at the school. She tried not to laugh at the thought of them sweeping floors and cleaning bathrooms, but often did, when they weren't looking, of course. Because of their punishments, she'd had time to develop her new skills almost to perfection. Hey Dad. She was closer to him than ever, each being there for the other when they missed Naruto too much. Hinata waved to Iruka as he showed up early to go over his lesson plans for the day. You guys ready? She laughed with delight as Akamaru woofed at her, then jumped up to lick her face. The 5th Hokage, Lady Tsunade, sighed. It had been 3 months since Naruto had left the village, and if she hadn't made a commitment to be the leader of the Hidden Leaf, she would either be with her son or out gambling to fill her lonely moments. She stamped another paper, the sound echoing from her desk through the floor and making those underneath her office jump. I've been cheated. Stamp. Iruka's gotten to watch him grow. Stamp. Jiraiya's had time alone with him before too. Stamp. His friends have known him most of his life. Stamp. Tucci got his first smile. Stamp. He's mine now. When will I get some time with him? Stamp. The building shook. Shizune. Tsunade threw the stamp at the door, and Shizune caught it before it could smack her in the head. Taunton trotted in with the Jonin, and Tsunade managed a smile for her pet. I'm taking Taunton out for a walk. When Shizune opened her mouth, Tsunade yanked out her tongue and threw it out the window, or at least that what her look said she would do if Shizune tried to stop her. I only want the most important paperwork on my desk when I come back. If I have to do it, make it something important. I'll be back when I get back. Tsunade wrapped a scarf around her neck and put on her long Hokage cloak, and with Taunton at her heels, left the office. Yes ma'am. Shizune sighed, going to the desk. She looked out at the weak winter sun. You're late, Naruto. Send Talon on with your next letter. It had been 2 weeks since Talon had returned to Naruto, which wasn't a great deal of time, but anything over a week and Lady Tsunade became anxious and took it out on anyone near her. Which normally means me. Shizune dropped down into a vacant chair. Tsunade breathed deep of the frigid air. As always, she wondered where Naruto was and if he was better off or worse wherever he was when it came to the weather. He wrote, but often he didn't know where they were or didn't think it important enough to mention where. She'd expected lots of pictures from him, but barring that first month, he quit sending them, saying he had too much to do than pose for pictures. Of course, she written back threatening both of them if they didn't take pictures, but what could she do when they weren't there for her to hit? At first she headed for the academy intending on talking to Iruka, but that would mean taking him from his students, and that wasn't fair to the kids. Tsunade thought of going to see Lord Hyuga, but knew that he spent the mornings training when his children were busy with their teams, school and work. It made her smile to think of him doing all he could to keep up with Neji, Hinata and Hanabi. Anyway, that was out. In the end she went there, his apartment, no their apartment. The minute she opened the door, a rush of love came over her for Naruto. Closing the door behind them, Tsunade smelled Hinata's scent and saw her small additions to the apartment. There were curtains instead of shades at the windows and the girl's clothes hung next to his in the small closet. There were flowers on the kitchen table. On the bed were a pure white quilt and lots of plush purple pillows with a stuffed fox sitting in the middle of them watching her curiously. "Hey Naruto." Her lips quirked. Tsunade sat at the table and just soaked in the atmosphere of her son. "I probably shouldn't be here without asking. It's not just his apartment anymore, is it, Tonton? But Hinata's such a sweetheart, I don't think she'll mind. At least I have her. Hinata is already like my daughter." A tear formed in her eye. "I think I've spent more time with her than the son I adopted." It was unreasonable how much she missed him. Tonton whined, rubbed against Tsunade's leg. "I'm pitiful, I know, but I can't help it. I miss my son." She sighed and wiped away the stray tear. Tsunade sat for over an hour holding one of his shirts because it smelled of him. Finally she rose, hugged the stuffed fox and left the apartment. "I need a drink." Tsunade sighed, then set off a brisk pace for one of her favorite drinking holes. The paperwork could wait another hour or so. Iruka went to the roof on his lunch break. It was silly, for it was too chilly to be outside. He knew this, yet here he was. Of course he was looking for Talon, but depending on how far Naruto and Jiraiya had traveled, it could take a week or more for Talon to reach them. Also in general, Talon rarely came to him or Tsunade. The hawk had been trained by Kakashi and Takeshi and usually returned to one of them, mostly to Takeshi since the hawk sought out the phoenix's chakra. He assumed that since they were both birds, that Talon preferred the phoenix to anyone else besides Naruto. He smiled thinking of those last weeks with his son. Talon had rarely strayed from Naruto's shoulder and Naruto was an indulgent father. He stroked Talon constantly, fed him treats and even hunted with the hawk sometimes. Naruto even talked to him and included the hawk in conversations, asking the bird what he thought. It was so cute. Iruka wondered why he'd never thought to get Naruto a pet before. Unlike most pets, hawks could take care of themselves, so whenever Naruto was on a mission, Talon could fend for himself. Still, he and Tsunade were able to see the type of parent he would be when their son was with Talon. The sushi he'd brought for lunch was quickly eaten, and of course he wondered what Naruto was eating. Iruka missed him but worried about him more than anything. There was so much that could go wrong. Naruto could fail to control the fox's chakra and hurt either himself or someone else, or God forbid, he could be attacked yet again. Still, he had it better than Tsunade. She worried and missed him terribly. He'd already decided to have a talk with Naruto when he got home. Mother and son needed more time together. He'd work it out somehow with Hinata and Shizune for the two of them to have some real time together, and it would benefit Naruto in the long run. He would learn what it takes to be a good leader from her, as well as enhance the mother-child relationship. "What are you doing today, son? Don't overdo it and be sure to go to bed early and get some rest. That last letter, your handwriting was kinda shaky. Train hard but take care of yourself too." Iruka told the cloudless empty sky. "I love you, boy." Sighing, he turned and headed back to his class. Lunch was over. Tucci wiped the counter and looked out at all the people walking by. Business was slow today. He got to Naruto's favorite seat and wondered how the boy was doing. It had surprised him when he too had gotten a letter. It had been short, just a "Hi, how are you doing really?" and telling him how much he missed Ichiraku ramen. He hadn't minded, was in fact pleased that Naruto had reached out to him. When Naruto had revealed his attempted suicide, Tucci had died a little inside. It was then that he realized how much he thought of Naruto as family. That sad baby who broke his heart, then healed it with his huge happy laugh. "You train hard and come on home, Naruto. I'll fill you up until you can't move," he said as he looked up at the mountains into which Naruto had disappeared. Ayame heard her father and went to his side. She kissed his cheek. "He will, and you may not want to make that promise." She grinned. "Naruto can eat up to 20 bowls, you know." The two shared a laugh, then looked up. "Ah, that's nothing. I can eat twice as much." Choji bragged as the flaps parted and he, followed by Shikamaru, Sakura and Lee, entered. "How about a large bowl of pork ramen to start?" His smile greeted father and daughter. "Coming right up. What about the rest of you?" Tucci got to work making the noodles and Ayame gave them tea then helped her father prepare the food. So how are things? You all have changed so much in 3 months. The proprietor said looking over the teenagers. They no longer looked like little kids but young adults, taller, stronger and more mature. Choji's hair was growing out and he'd started wearing a red outfit with gray body armor. Shikamaru now wore the more traditional Chunin uniform. Lee of course was still in green spandex but had added the Chunin vest to his wardrobe. Sakura wore dark leggings, indifference to the cold and a white, wrap-around skirt with long slits on the sides and her red top also with added sleeves beneath a red cloak. They were much more than they used to be. Okay, we're on lunch from the academy. Just another 3 months of this then we're back on regular duty, and Naruto will be home. Sakura looked down into the bowl picturing Naruto's smiling face. Yes, I will be anxious to spar with Naruto to see how much he's learned. Lee said, one fist in the air. It will be a great battle. Lee laughed in delight, he couldn't wait. Yeah, I'm sure Naruto will be excited too. Shikamaru said sarcastically making the others laugh. Oblivious Lee said of course Naruto would love to fight him. Yeah, it will be good to get back to regular training and missions. Class bore me as much as they ever did. Shikamaru said in the pause of laughter. And Naruto wasn't around to keep things interesting this time. Sakura smiled fondly. That he did but Shikamaru, you were supposed to be grading papers and cleaning, not attending classes. It wasn't like I was trying to go to classes but the grading didn't take long and I didn't want to interrupt the sensei so I sat there listening and fell asleep. He said in defense not noticing their wide-eyed stares. Whatever. Sakura sighed and finished her ramen. I can't wait to see him though. Naruto's grown so much and being gone doing more training, will probably change him some more. He just might leave me behind. Sakura set her head down. She gave Lee a soft smile when he patted her back. Not Naruto. He may get stronger but he doesn't leave his friends behind. I do worry about him though. Shikamaru said quietly, his mind speeding through many scenarios good and bad. He told you not to. You're going to become an old man worrying all the time. Choji said coming up from his fourth bowl. I'm pretty sure Tamari won't like it if you turn into an old man. He laughed then coughed when Shikamaru thumped him on the back. Oh, that lovely sand girl. Ayame grinned coming to stand before him. She's been here several times to see you hasn't she? Her stance was mischievous. No. She came on business, not to see me. Shikamaru turned red. You should go visit and see your home. You may be living there one day. Ayame shook her finger at him grinning and winking at everybody else as they laughed. Weren't we talking about Naruto? The genius tried to change the subject. Oh, I can't wait to tell Naruto. He'll be excited to know you and Tamari have hooked up. Sakura teased. They have? When? Shikamaru. You beast. It's always the quiet ones you know? Lee said and they all but Shikamaru fell over laughing. Kakashi was up in the mountains. His team wouldn't be free until later so he was out mountain climbing. He'd already done 2 hours with his left arm and was working on his second hour with his right. A hard wind blew chilling his already cold fingers and Kakashi hugged the rock trying not to get blown away, which just would have meant starting over again. Sasuke and Takeshi were training like demons were after them and he had to laugh. Technically the Phoenix wasn't a demon and Sasuke had his own personal demons chasing him, but it was funny when he thought about it. Sasuke had gone back to brooding again without Naruto around. It seemed he took his big brother duties very seriously, and without Naruto around to brother, the dark-eyed teen thought too much about his dark past. Of course it wasn't just Sasuke and Takeshi doing more training. Kakashi had already known that he needed to train himself harder as well. Not only to be a better ninja but to stay ahead of his Chunin. Finally he pulled himself up to the summit. The high altitude made him take several deep breaths, creating warm fog on the cold wind. In the distance he could see the huge walls surrounding his home. Despite the cold, there were many people milling about and living their lives. Most of the time he thought little of other people, not overly interested in them or their lives. It was a fault of his he knew, but lately he'd begun watching people and looking for something, someone like Naruto. Naruto had always been an original character but his absence really drove that fact home. No one's smile quite matched his, though Hinata's came in a close second lately. Kakashi even missed it when Naruto got quiet and introspective. That happened quite often too. Kakashi blamed it on the suicide attempt. Naruto still had joy within him but at times that old pain would resurface. He should know because it happened to him when he remembered all the friends he'd lost. Like Obito. At odd times of the day he'd look up expecting to see Naruto scowling at him for being late or laughing ready to share a joke with him. That kid had come to mean a lot to him. Loud, annoying, stubborn, quick to anger, running into danger without thinking of the consequences. He looked so much like his former sensei, but there was little else to compare them. Of course that soon changed, even more so over the last year. Loyal to a fault, will defend the weak to the death, will fight for what's right and protect those that are important to him. That's the Naruto he'd come to know and see as someone able to follow in his father's footsteps. Kakashi stretched his arms over his head, working out the kinks as he debated the toughest route back down the mountain. He would run it at top speed and work some more on his stamina and endurance. Kakashi jumped. Uzumaki Naruto, your father was one of the finest men I ever knew. He wasn't a hard man, but you could always tell when he meant business, and although your smile is much larger than his, when he was happy you could always feel his joy. I'm so sorry you never got to know him. I think you would have brought him the biggest smiles ever. I wonder how much quicker you would have moved up through the ninja ranks if your father had been around to teach you and give you the love you always deserved. He skidded on some loose rocks and lifted his arms to maintain his balance. After a few moments of trying to stay upright, Kakashi was off and running again. He jumped a boulder and never lost a step. I'm worried. What will you say and do when you're told? I knew you were there, but I was too busy. I was busy with the Anbu and trying to be the best. You were there and hurting and I let you. Yes, I had missions, but I could have asked to be on the detail that watched over you. Ah, damn it Naruto. Even when I got you as a genin I didn't do as much for you as I could have. I thought I could have better success with Sasuke, but that just hurt you and caused an almost irreparable wedge between you boys. Kakashi made a point of going down through Phoenix Pass. It was what the ninjas had come to call it. The site where Naruto and Takeshi had fought. Of course there was a lot of open space since all the debris had been removed and the new Tress had yet to even think of breaking through the hard, cold ground. He slowed and it was if he could still hear those long-ago sonic booms and feel the awesome power those two could produce. It all sounds like crap to me too Naruto, but I hope you'll believe me and forgive me. If you can forgive my ambition and my abandonment of you, then maybe Minato-sensei will forgive me as well. Sometimes when I look up at his face, all I can see is disappointment. Come home and smile for me, laugh for me even if for a little while Naruto. I miss you my hyperactive, knucklehead ninja. Kakashi made it to the river and ran across it on swift feet. As he approached the village, he could feel the fourth's eyes watching his every move. Kiba's last class finally let out. The embarrassment had long since faded after that first month. He smiled as he walked down the hall going to pick up his supplies so that he could wash the windows. Being back at the academy wasn't as bad as he thought it would be. Of course having Takeshi there had helped a lot, but truthfully, and he'd only admitted this to Akamaru, he was learning stuff he'd missed the first time around. All those times he and Naruto and Shikamaru and Choji had cut class was stuff they'd missed. Now there were things he had a better understanding of than before because he was actually in class to learn them. He did laugh a little thinking that maybe Naruto should retake a few classes too, especially since he'd had the lowest grades out of all of them, but then changed his mind. Naruto had been through enough. I understand so much more now than I ever did, school stuff and Naruto. Damn Naruto, you and Sasuke, even my own teammates really had it rough and I was so clueless. Kiba jerkily grabbed the bucket and rags, then paused when Akamaru whined. Sorry boy, I'll tell you later, okay? Don't want to interrupt the other classes. He spoke softly. Just because he was done for the day, didn't mean everyone else was. Let's go. They went up to the roof where Akamaru found a patch of sun and lay down for a nap while Kiba used the pulley system to lower the platform so that he could start cleaning the windows. As he worked, his thoughts of his friends resurfaced. Sasuke's loss was always evident since it was so public, and being kids none of us knew what to say to him, so we left him alone. I knew about Hinata's situation but still didn't do much to help her through it. And Shino, he always seemed so arrogant and standoffish, but I never even thought about him being so reserved because he was trying not to freak out the villagers and other shinobi. I never gave a thought about what he might feel like because people avoided him. Naruto, I can't decide who had it worse, you or Sasuke. To have a family then lose it, or to never have had one? Both of you went through hell. But I always grudgingly admired Sasuke and thought you were a joke. Kiba was grateful the classroom he was outside of was empty. He saw his sorry reflection in the glass. It was said that kids could be the cruelest people on earth, and Kiba knew it to be true, for he had been one of them. Growing older and experiencing several dangerous missions had changed him. He saw the world as it was and not just his personal playground anymore. That was something most of them had learned long before now. I'm going to be a better man. I won't cause unnecessary suffering anymore. I'll try to understand the people around me more. Hinata and Shino, and especially you Naruto, you'll have the best of friends in me that I can be. Come back strong Naruto and let me show you the new me. The glass in front of him now showed two faces, his and a smiling Naruto. Shino scratched Akamaru's ears. He heard Kiba's vow and was pleased. The guy had always been a decent ninja and had improved these last 2 years, but at getting along with people, he'd definitely been lacking in that. Because of Kiba's vow they would improve in teamwork, but now they could truly be friends. He looked up at the sun and wondered about Naruto. Shino supposed they all did now that he wasn't around. It was funny how he became the center of their world in many ways when before they practically ignored his existence. To see the change in that boy to the man he was now, it seemed miraculous, but it was more normal than most people thought. If Naruto had gotten more attention as a child, he would have progressed as the rest of them had, and that's what eventually happened. Naruto received his attention late, but still it was enough to push him forward. Unlike Kiba, he hadn't put Naruto down so much as avoid him mimicking the adults instead of trying to understand the outcast boy. It did bother him to realize that they could have been friends long ago had he known of Naruto's plight, the fox in him. They were so similar it was uncanny. Accepting Naruto after he'd found out had been easy. Maybe not as easy as Shikamaru, still it hadn't taken him long to see Naruto as he truly was. The nine-tailed fox was just a part of him, nothing more nothing less. Shino smiled widely to think that he now had friends outside of his family. People he could share his thoughts with and know they'd listen. He wanted to walk down Konoha's streets with Naruto and Kiba at his side and let all of the people of the Hidden Leaf know they were his friends. They'd shared so much over this year. There was a closeness to their group that had never existed before. Shino vowed to cherish them as he did his insects. If you cared for your friends, then the feelings would be returned. How do you like that, Naruto? It was you who taught us our greatest lesson. You suffered yet you endured and cared for us anyway. It's the least we can do to show you what you accomplished without even meaning to when you return home. I'll be watching for you, my friend. The sun seemed to twinkle down at him. Shino patted Akamaru, then went to edge of the roof. Want some help? He asked Kiba, and the two smiled at each other. Takeshi practiced with his sword. He slashed downwards, turned his body and brought the phoenix sword back up at angle. He was fighting an invisible enemy, his old teacher. Takeshi had learned the way of the sword well but had never been able to beat his master. He knew it was up to him to perfect his skills, to come up with a style all his own to one day surpass the man in his mind. But that wasn't the only reason he practiced so hard. Takeshi wanted to pass on his skills to his new brother Naruto. It was a word only 3 people used, himself, Hinata and Naruto. He had no legal claim on Naruto, unlike Iruka and Lady Tsunade. He didn't even have a past with him like Sakura and Sasuke. In fact, many could say that the only connection he and Naruto had were the spirits within them. It was how it all started. Takeshi couldn't deny that. That was their foundation, but he liked to think the relationship had grown into true brotherhood. He thrust the sword into the cold ground and dropped to one knee. 2 hours of sword practice completed. Sweat chilled his body and Takeshi reached for his cloak to cover himself. He rarely if ever got sick because of his lady, but he still felt the winter wind. Brother. Not having grown up with siblings, it was strange to think of having one now. Not only that, but a teenager, someone younger and more powerful. Takeshi smiled at that. Naruto did indeed have more power. He had the most power out of all the Biju. Of course he still didn't have full control of that power. My little brother. Family. It was a concept he hadn't thought much about since his grandparents' deaths. Phoenix was his family now. She was mother and best friend, the one who cared most for him. Her feelings were never hidden from him. He could feel her love as he felt the wind against his skin. There had been women who'd captured his attention in the past and he'd dated some, but none meant to him what the Phoenix did. But now, a pair of blue eyes and a wild laugh had come to rest in his heart along with Phoenix's song. Naruto was a complicated guy, but when it came down to the people he liked and cared for, his feelings were simple. Takeshi got up and sheathed his sword. Automatically his eyes scanned the sky for Talon. Yeah, I know, but I can't help but look for him. Phoenix had just told him that she would feel Talon long before Takeshi saw him. It will be 4 months and a week. I imagine him working twice as hard as all the rest of us, even though we're training from before dawn till after the sun sets. Naruto makes me feel as if I'm standing still, even though I know I've come a long way. Those lessons I learned long ago from my father's friend stayed with me. In many ways, I'm the baby brother and he's the elder. Takeshi laughed. He's even about to be married. He was going home for lunch. There was a thought to go by Ichiraku's, but Takeshi decided to go some other time. Konoha was a great village. He could see why Naruto chose to stay despite his past. None of the villagers knew about the Phoenix, but he assumed all of the ninja knew. Some days it was hard simply walking through the village and listening to the tripe falling from the lips of the ignorant. Takeshi found himself wanting to lash out and slice their tongues from their mouths. Naruto was not a demon. Any fool could see that. Once Phoenix had nearly busted his eardrums when he grabbed one really foul-mouthed man and nearly tore his arm out its socket. Then there were the ninja. He got the impression that many used to think the same as the villagers, but there was a change happening. They were wary of his power, of course, but where there may have been fear before, now there was curiosity. It was weird coming in so late in Naruto's life and learning how people felt about him. He knew his brother trusted the ninja of this village to keep his home safe, but except for a chosen few, Naruto believed most of them wouldn't lift a finger to keep him safe, and yet he stayed. Ah, Naruto, I can't blame you for your doubts, but it isn't as bad as you think. They ask me about you. Yes, sometimes it seems like an interrogation, but at the same time they ask questions about your strength and loyalty. I watch them look up at Hokage Mountain. It's like your image has already been carved there, and their questions then seem hopeful. His own golden eyes looked up at the four faces. Once the warm weather returned, work on carving the fifth Hokage's face would begin. Takeshi went up the stairs to his apartment. He paused by Naruto's door and laid a hand on it. The urge to knock and have Naruto open the door smiling at him was overwhelming. Man, I'm like a lovesick boyfriend. He laughed at himself. Takeshi went to his own place. Or I'm a guy who just misses his family. Things were much simpler when it was just you and me, my lady. No, of course I wouldn't change a thing. This will just take some getting used to. Besides, if I'm feeling this lost with Naruto gone, I can't imagine what his parents, Hinata and Sasuke, are going through. Takeshi washed up and began to fix himself lunch. Sasuke, we get along all right, but he's kinda closed himself off from us, well, except for Hinata. She won't let him get away with it. As he sat down to eat, he glanced at one of the many pictures that adorned his walls. The group of them were on the basketball court. It was another of their two wild games to be called. For each of them, there was a Naruto guarding them. The girls watched from the sidelines while Iruka, Kakashi and Lady Tsunade laughingly tried to referee. It's not as much fun without you, Naruto. It's home, but we're missing the one who makes it worthwhile. See you in 2 months, little brother. Takeshi stared at the picture a moment longer, a Naruto for each of them. The sun was setting and ending the day early. They hadn't had a mission in over 2 weeks. His life was early morning training, work at the academy, then more training. Sometimes they all got together for lunch or Hinata had him over for dinner. Occasionally Iruka-sensei would invite him over, and a few times he'd been invited to spend some time with Lady Tsunade. Those moments were bittersweet. They missed their son and they could see he missed Naruto too. The attention was great, but at the same time, Sasuke wondered how Naruto would feel if he knew that in a small way, he was taking Naruto's place. In the short letters they exchanged, Sasuke never told him about those times with his parents. They didn't say much at all, really just enough to let the other know they were thinking of each other. Of course the longest scrolls were for Hinata, then his parents. Sasuke usually got one, and Sakura and Takeshi. The other Chunins would sometimes get a group letter, then assorted notes for Kakashi, Tuchi, Ayame, even Ibiki and Genma. Sasuke entered his apartment but didn't turn on any lights. The curtains were still open, but the light they let in was dim, and though he could still see out, soon all he would be able to see was his reflection. He looked around, remembering Naruto here in his home. He'd said it was big, and it was. Sasuke had been given this place soon after. It was a lot of space for one person. It was more of a place for a couple like Naruto and Hinata than a lonely boy with no family. He sank down onto the couch and let his head fall onto the back of it. Naruto slept here that one time. It should have freaked me out to have Naruto here, but except for a quick twinge, it was all too natural for my best friend sleep here. Best friend, brother, Itachi. Damn it, no sooner than he leaves than you come back to me. Sasuke got up quickly and turned on the lights. Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingan eyes disappeared. Those damn eyes had been haunting him ever since Naruto had left. All those hurts and pains and the feelings of weakness had come back to him. That and the need to get revenge. Sasuke went to take a hot shower. Their images flashed inside his mind. Itachi staring at him, his face blank face, and Naruto smiling and laughing at him. Itachi with blood on his hands and those eyes of his stalking him. Naruto's eyes bugged out and yelling at the top of his voice, telling him he was going to knock him into the next country. So very different were his brothers. One wouldn't or couldn't show emotion and the other always showing an abundance of emotion. There was no doubt which one he wanted to share his life with. Naruto could make him forget all his troubles and show him how to have fun. Also, being Naruto's big brother made him responsible for him. It was his job to keep his younger brother safe from his older brother. Sasuke closed his eyes and let the water pour down over him. The irony was too much. Killing Itachi would satisfy his need to avenge the death of his entire clan, but it would also protect Naruto from whatever scheme his brother and the Akatsuki had planned. Two brothers, one by blood and one by choice. Both were necessary for his happiness. One had to die and the other had to live for him to have any kind of normal life. What if we were never shinobi? If our family had just been that, a regular family? Would you have turned on your blood, Itachi? Would you have spent time with me because you wanted to? Would you have had a freaking heart inside your body? He yelled and punched the wall. Sasuke took a shuddering breath and turned off the water. He got out and hastily dried off his body. He put on a pair of loose pants and wandered into the kitchen. Mechanically, he fixed a light supper of fish, vegetables and rice. Unable to stand the silence and the imaginary eyes of Itachi, Sasuke turned on the TV to some mindless sitcom. Of course, the laugh track brought to mind his missing blonde brother. It was nothing like Naruto's inhibited laughter, but it eased the ache in his chest. 2 more months. Sasuke stabbed a pepper, then put it in his mouth. Hinata and Takeshi entered his thoughts. He hadn't been so self-involved that he wasn't aware that they were all in the same boat. Hinata had been surprisingly strong, offering her love and support to Iruka and Lady Tsunade, easily stepping in for Naruto. She'd also kept her promise to Naruto by helping him and Takeshi to get along. She would spar with the two of them and make them hurt if they didn't take it seriously. Sasuke laughed, remembering when Neji had paralyzed Naruto that one time. Well, little Hinata didn't settle for just numbing their muscles but shocking the shit out of them. He grinned. She's really changed. I've never been so close to a girl before, and I never would have thought the first girl I would like to spend time with would have been the ultra-shy Hinata. I could probably fall for her. Sasuke stopped fork in the air. It was true, he was attracted to Hinata. His hands slowly dropped to the table and he looked at a picture of the three of them. Naruto was behind and just to the side of Hinata, talking and smiling. Hinata was turned into him, trying to cover his mouth while he stood on Hinata's other side, one hand on her shoulder, the other smacking the back of Naruto's head. He stared at the woman Hinata had become and definitely liked what he saw. Wide lavender eyes, long silky hair and a beautiful smile. I fall for my brother's girl, but I could never make her smile like that, Sasuke said wistfully. Hinata's wide beautiful smile could never be his, and rightly so. He chuckled and shook his head. When he finally decided he liked a woman, she was already taken, plus the fact Hinata had never been one of his fans. You picked the right guy, Hinata. You and Naruto were meant for each other. I've never seen anything so right. Sasuke stared at the picture as he finished his dinner. Later, with just his bedside lamp on, Sasuke pulled out a photo album. He'd salvaged it from his old home long ago. There weren't many pictures of a happy family, but there were at least pictures. Pictures of his father and uncles on the Konoha police force. Several pictures of Itachi for each of his accomplishments, which were many. Some of his mother and father before he and Itachi, but fewer after Itachi were born. More of him and his mother after he was first born, but those slacked off and there weren't half as many of him as there had been of Itachi growing up. Smiles were definitely lacking after Itachi's acceptance into the Anbu. Sasuke closed the album with finality. It was depressing. He'd wanted something special of him and his family. He wanted to know, he needed to believe there had once been happiness there, but he just couldn't seem to find it. Again his eyes found a picture of him and Naruto. It was annoying, but now I see why. Sasuke meant Iruka-sensei and his camera. As much as looking at the old pictures bothered him, he at least had them, but Naruto didn't have any of himself growing up. In comparison to his own pictures, Sasuke much preferred these new ones. I smile. I want to smile because I'm happy. He and his new family and our friends give me reason to smile. Sasuke spoke to the quiet apartment. He folded his arms behind his back and noticed just how many pictures he had of everyone. Most of them had Naruto in the pictures, but every one of their friends were there too. He couldn't remember putting them up. Whenever Iruka or Lady Tsunade were passing out copies, Sasuke knew he took one, but just when had he taken the time to buy frames and hang them all? He blinked in surprise as he realized that one whole wall was almost covered with pictures. Hinata, did you do this? He queered. It was something she would do. He'd found her in his place sometimes. She'd cook for him or show up in the morning before he left the bathroom. One morning she'd gotten an eyeful. Sasuke blushed. He now looked out before leaving the bathroom in the morning, and again he wondered how they'd gotten so comfortable with each other to do these things, and as always the answer came back to Naruto. You have a demon within you. You endured your own personal hell, but you're happy. Whether you just made up your mind to be that way or forced yourself, it's true, isn't Naruto? You accept the pain, you don't deny it, but you don't let it be the only thing you feel. Because you can laugh and smile, Hinata can and I can. And therefore, Hinata and I can be friends, and Takeshi too. Sasuke hadn't forgotten about the man. A few times he wished he could, but that was just jealousy. It wasn't true. Naruto didn't prefer one of them over the other. Naruto shared himself with both of them, just in different ways. They shared having a whole other being within themselves, something he could never know about, while he and Naruto shared growing up alone here in Konoha and a need to succeed. Rivals but friends. Naruto would be upset if he knew we weren't getting along, all because I can't let go of the past. He got out of bed for a glass of water. As he walked back to the bed, he looked at his pictures yet again. Just seeing that idiot's smile and his own lifted some of the fog that had come over him in Naruto's absence. 2 more months till you're back again. Okay Naruto, I'll hang out with Takeshi more and I'll try not to brood so much, but you'd better get your ass back here on time. Iruka, Lady Tsunade, Hinata, hell even Kakashi all miss you. I miss you. I may do something really stupid and go after Itachi if you're not here to stop me. Sasuke clenched his glass as he stared at the two of them, Naruto on his shoulders as they played some crazy game. In his head he could hear Itachi's voice that the way to get stronger was to kill the one closest to him. Never, Sasuke yelled, and you won't kill him either, you bastard. The glass cracked and shattered into pieces. I have a true brother now, and family. You will not destroy this one. I vow this on my life. Naruto's dreams will come true, and maybe I will finally be able to have dreams of my own that don't include blood and death. Those last words whooshed out of him and Sasuke sighed. Carefully he picked up all the glass and cleaned the floor. Finally he crawled back in bed to sleep. Tomorrow he would spend some time with Takeshi and Hinata, especially Hinata. Being with her was the best way to feel close to his absent brother. Then later he would talk to Kakashi and see about intensifying his training. Sasuke pulled the covers up over his head. He would go to one more place tomorrow, the abandoned Uchiha district. As the thought horrified him, he knew answers could be found there, at least he hoped so, and if nothing else he could possibly put the past behind him forever. He dropped into a dreamless sleep. Sasuke's mind thankfully gave him a break from all the what-ifs and mixed feelings of his brothers. In truth, it was because he believed in Naruto was relying on him to come home and stand by his side that Sasuke was able to rest. As it turned out, Hinata would not get her spring wedding. By the time the 6th month of Naruto's training was over, so was spring. Summer was starting slowly. The heat had not yet made an appearance, so everything was still quite nice. The grass was green. All the trees had all their shiny leaves blowing in warm breezes. On the mountain, tiny shoots had begun to sprout, reaching for the bright sun. Villagers and shinobi alike found many reasons to spend time outside and enjoy the great weather. Most of all, there was a sense of anticipation in the air as a large group of people kept watching the skies for a hawk or the main road for a white-haired man and a blonde-haired teen. The new parents were on alert. A knock on a door, a footstep just out of sight had them looking up ready to smile, but disappointment ruled. One female often started her day at the gate and she checked every evening before going home to an empty apartment, loneliness and worry pulling on her heart. Two dark-haired men took turns just outside the gates each night waiting. They waited and waited for a whole extra month. 7 months gone without Naruto, and this last month with no word from him. He was late. There wasn't a letter carried by his beloved Talon. The phoenix via Takeshi could not sense the hawk. Teen and Hawk were nowhere near Konoha. Anticipation turned to dread and hopelessness. If they were in trouble, no one knew where they were to go help. The Hokage sent out teams to see if there had been trouble anywhere in the Land of Fire. Nothing. Every town and village was at peace, there was no trouble anywhere, and no one had seen Lady Tsunade's adopted son. Had Orochimaru and Kabuto gone after him yet again, hoping to lure Sasuke to them, or had the Akatsuki gotten a hold of Naruto and had in fact killed him? Was Naruto lost to them? Would the last memory they had of him be Naruto shrouded in fog and fading from their lives? Jiraiya left Naruto on his own. He knew without a doubt that he wasn't the one everyone was waiting for, so he was going to hit the hot springs first. A little rest and lots of research. He couldn't wait. The old man smiled and rubbed his hands together. He circled around the village, intending on going through the gate closest to the springs. Later tonight, after spending some time watching the lovely ladies, he'd make his way into the village proper and catch up with Tsunade and Kakashi. If he'd gone in with Naruto, he'd just have been lost in the shuffle, and he hoped Tsunade's wrath would have lessened after seeing Naruto and she wouldn't beat the living daylights out of him for not sending the pictures she wanted and for not coming home in 6 months like they were supposed to. Jiraiya had a large scroll secured low about his waist and a backpack above it. The morning sun was warm and it was a beautiful day to be alive. Jiraiya whistled happily until a kunai struck the ground at his feet. "Stop right there. Identify yourself. Konoha is closed to visitors. State your business or die." A voice yelled out, then 5 Anbu landed and immediately surrounded the white-haired man. Lips still puckered, Jiraiya stopped, frozen. His eyes went from one masked figure to the other. What the hell is going on? He finally asked, still not daring to move, but he wasn't worried. Anbu they might be, but they still were not enough for him. There was shocked silence as they finally recognized the Sannin. One man stood up from his fighting stance. Master Jiraiya? Master Jiraiya, where's Naruto? Jiraiya tilted his head, thinking. Gates closed. Anbu confronting anyone who gets too close to the village. And they're looking for Naruto? Oh, this could be bad. The Toad Sage smiled and waved a hand at the Anbu. Oh, he's fine. Should be approaching the main gate at any moment now. He scratched his head. If this is how you're greeting people, don't blame me if anyone gets hurt, okay? Naruto, don't kill them. Maybe you should contact the front gate and call off the dogs, Tsuande won't be happy if you guys attack her boy. That got the man's attention and he tried his communicator but got nothing but static. In the distance they heard a muted explosion. Damn it, she's going to blame me. I just know she will. Naruto. Jiraiya yelled and stomped the ground. Talon chirped as he rode on Naruto's shoulder. Yeah, we're almost home. This is the first time you didn't fly in, isn't? He looked over at the hawk and smiled. Talon had grown in their time away. His wingspan was huge. After a hard day of training, Naruto had relaxed by watching Talon fly. Wow, I just realized there won't be much for you to do when we get home. Naruto had been with Talon constantly when he wasn't delivering his letters, but that may not be possible now. He wouldn't have a problem with Talon staying in the apartment, but Hinata might. Don't worry, we'll figure something out, or hey, maybe you'll start your own family. You've turned into one handsome fellow. Naruto laughed as Talon preened and shuffled a bit on his shoulder. He could see the main gate now. Naruto knew he was going to be in trouble when he got home, but he was too excited to be overly worried about his mother smacking him into next week. Hopefully she'll just knock me into the next day. He grinned. I could actually use the sleep, maybe I will let Mama to knock me out. His laughter fit in just perfectly with the beautiful summer day. On the way home they'd made a special stop which had lasted for a whole extra month. Pervy Sage had told him to send Talon and tell them, but they were so close to home and he wanted to surprise them, and then there was that move he wanted to perfect before going home. So he just waited and kept Talon at his side. Naruto adjusted the heavy pack and just barely kept himself from running forward. After being gone for so long, he wanted to enjoy every footstep taking him home. As it was, they just released the toads back to their realm, so he only had a short walk. Instead of taking 3 days to get home, they made it 1. "Hey, why is the gate closed?" Naruto asked out loud. It just occurred to him that he couldn't see the village. "I wonder if there's been trouble." "Hey." Naruto jumped backwards but didn't get very far because not only were there 2 Anbu Black Ops in front of him, but there were 2 more behind him. "What the hell is this? Are they barring me from the village? Did something happen to Mama? Hinata?" The leader, wearing a fox mask, looked at the young man. He wore a bright orange shirt and a pair of blue shorts. His hair was slicked back into a short ponytail at the nape of his neck. There was a light beard on his face and he wore a pair of shades. On the man's shoulder was a fierce-looking hawk that screeched at them angrily. "Turn back now and there won't be any trouble, stranger. Konoha is off limits." "Off limits? Stranger? They don't recognize me?" Naruto knew he was dressed like a civilian, but after all these years of being watched by the Anbu, it was hard to believe that they didn't recognize him. He couldn't help it and smiled. "He's up to something. He's smiling. Maybe he's got friends nearby," said the other man, blocking Naruto's way, and moved forward with a kunai in his hand. "Whoa, hey, wait a minute. Let me explain." Naruto dodged and somersaulted over the men's heads and outside of their circle. He felt, because he wasn't carrying any weapons. They were all in his pack. Naruto never thought he'd need them the moment he got home. Damn it, go Talon. The hawk had been circling overhead, but at the command of his master, the hawk took off over the gate. The Anbu watched in vain as the hawk entered the village, then turned back to the man. He'd shrugged out of the pack and was facing them down. Apparently the man knew how to fight. "If you'd just listen a minute." That was all he got out before the first ninja drew his sword. He and the one with the kunai rushed Naruto. Shadow clone Jutsu. Suddenly there were 2 more Narutos. He didn't want to hurt these men, but they were coming at him with weapons, obviously trying to kill him. Seeing clones appear, the men faltered for a second, which was enough time for a clone to run full tilt at the one with the kunai. The Black Ops ninja easily stabbed the unarmed clone but was shocked to feel his weapons holster rip from his thigh. As the clone disappeared, his weapons went sailing over to the stranger. "That's better. Hold up, I'm Naruto growled as he blocked a blow from the man holding the sword. His other clone, now armed as well, fought off the other 2 elite ninja. The Anbu were amazed. The stranger was fast. 2 teams fighting 2-on-1 and one was a clone, but every move was blocked. Naruto kicked out and struck the Anbu with the kunai. He then dropped to the ground and did a sweeping kick and caught him off balance, then surged up, locked his kunai in the hilt of the Anbu leader's raised sword. With his free hand, Naruto delivered 2 rapid punches to the man's stomach, then an elbow to his throat. "Looks like this fox is stronger." Naruto clone fought with a kunai in each hand, blocking the Anbu's attacks. He knew he couldn't hurt these men, but he was getting angry because they were trying to hurt, no kill him. He took a kick to the stomach. Naruto clone smiled. He grabbed the foot, twisted it and sent the Anbu flying into his comrade. "This is annoying. Fine, maybe they'll know who I am after this." Naruto cursed under his breath and threw out several shuriken, giving the downed Anbu incentive to stay back. In seconds he was up in a tree, joined by his clone who'd read his mind. "Stupid idiots. If you'd just listened." On the palm of his hand a blue sphere formed. The leader gasped. Only 2 people in the leaf could do that attack. It was him and they just tried to kill him. "Oh shit. Move. Get out of the way. Don't touch him." He called out hoarsely to his men, but it was too late. Despite the power the stranger was showing, his Anbu subordinates were rushing in to stop the threat. Rasengan. Naruto dove out of the tree at the hateful Anbu Black Ops. Takeshi was heading to the Hokage building. They would find out today where they were going. Several teams were heading out searching for Naruto. In every direction they would search, north, south, east and west, until they covered every inch of the Land of Fire. If Naruto or a trace of Naruto couldn't be found, then they were to head into the next land. Boundaries would mean nothing. Orders from the feudal lord would be ignored. They wouldn't attack unnecessarily. They were on a search and rescue mission, but if anyone tried to stop them, Lady Tsunade had talked to her shinobi the night before. These missions were voluntary. No one would be blamed if they did nothing. All responsibility would fall on her should their actions cause conflicts between the other nations. Doing this could cost her not only her position but her life as well. She need not have worried, the Leaf stood as one. Several hundred would stay behind to protect the village while every other available shinobi were going to look for Naruto. Face hard, one hand clamped on his sword, Takeshi stalked down the street. In front of him he could see Asuma and his team. Coming from a side street, Team Guy. Hearing someone call his name, Takeshi stopped to see Sakura and Sasuke heading his way. He was about to greet them when he froze. Takeshi, he's here. Talon, and Naruto, they're here. Just then a large hawk appeared in the sky above Takeshi. It screeched loudly then swooped low over his head. The very tip of a wing brushing Takeshi's hair. Something's wrong. Follow Talon. Sasuke. Naruto's home, hurry. He didn't wait for Sasuke but took off swiftly after the hawk. The villagers and ninja nearby had already stopped when the hawk had flown down looking as if it were about to attack Takeshi, but hearing Naruto's name set many of them into motion. Most were too curious and followed while others made to get out of the way of the rushing shinobi. Sasuke and Sakura hesitated for just 1 second. Seeing the hawk then realizing it was Talon had made them smile, but hearing the urgency in Takeshi's voice and seeing his unsmiling face told them something was wrong. Go! Lady Tsunade. He pointed towards the Hokage building and ordered Sakura to go get the Hokage. She nodded and left his side. Sakura wanted nothing more than to go with them, but if something was wrong and Naruto was hurt, Lady Tsunade would want to be there. Sakura jumped up onto the roof and ran. The streets were suddenly crowded with people and ninja running for the main gate. Team Guy and Asuma were on Takeshi's heels with Sasuke joining them. Other ninja were also running pell-mell for the gate. As they approached, they saw the gate was still locked tight, though the guards were trying to open it as they'd heard a commotion on the other side and just minutes before, they'd received a report of a stranger. Takeshi didn't care who saw. His wings burst from his back and he shot into the air, one hand held out for Sasuke. The team grabbed his wrist and up they flew. The height of the gate was always impressive and currently it was too damn high for the anxious siblings. An explosion on the other side had them looking worriedly at each other and Takeshi flapped his wings harder. Talon disappeared over the wall. Lady Tsunade. Sakura hopped onto the windowsill. She never entered this way, but this time she wasn't worried about doing things normal and proper. Naruto's here. Tsunade had been quietly drinking tea. In moments she was about to become a villain for breaking peace agreements, all for the sake of one child. Her child. She jumped when Sakura yelled at her from the window. What is it? Then, Naruto? Where? Take me. She didn't wait for an answer and was out of her chair and beside Sakura even as she asked the questions. Behind her she heard Shizune enter her office, but Tsunade was already leaping out of the window. Tsunade. Naruto? Iruka landed in the street next to her. He'd already been on his way to her office when he'd heard Naruto's name being spoken in the streets. The roof seemed the only way to move quickly, so he'd gone up only to see Tsunade and Sakura jumping down. Talon's here. Takeshi and Sasuke went ahead. Something's going on, Sakura explained. Tsunade gasped. They wouldn't, she whispered. The order had been given not to allow anyone into the village that wasn't Naruto or Jiraiya. Everybody knows Naruto, don't they? Hurry. Hinata had gone back to the Hyuga estate. Since they were heading out without knowing how long they would be gone, she'd wanted to spend some time with her family. Hanabi had begged to go, but Hiyashi had quietly told her no. Hinata and Neji would both be gone and he wanted one of his children near. Nor did he want her getting caught up in any conflict. Their actions could upset a lot of people and he wouldn't have all of his children branded as outlaws. Hiyashi wanted to go as well, but the village needed to be protected in case of retaliatory attacks for their actions. Neji had already left and Hinata was giving her father one last hug when she heard Talon. After spending a month with the young hawk, she knew that particular hawk's call. Father. She jerked out of his arms. Byakugan. Hiyashi wasn't sure what his daughter heard but followed her lead. Byakugan. People gathered in groups talking. Ninjas running to the main gate. Sasuke held by Takeshi as they flew over the gate. A hole in the ground. Wounded Anbu and Naruto? Hinata moved. She couldn't see or hear anyone. Her eyes were focused on one person. Her heart thumped loudly inside her chest. There were a few obstacles in her way, but they either moved or she moved them. Hinata had only one goal and nothing was going to keep her from it. Out of the way. Move. Sorry. Excuse us. Lord Hiyashi was at his daughter's side. He'd seen the man on the other side of the gate and he looked so different from Naruto that he wasn't sure that it was him, but Hinata seemed sure. He kept pace with her and tried to clear a path and excused them to the people too slow to get out of her way. It had better be Naruto outside the gate or Hinata would. Stay down. Naruto growled at the prone Anbu. One had just attempted to stand up. He hadn't hit any of them with the Rasengan, but they'd all been close enough to where he'd hit the ground to have been blown back several feet. Damn it, this was a new shirt. He whined because his shirt was torn and dirty, then had to smile when Talon swooped down to peck at one of the Anbu. That's enough. Come here. He spoke gently to the hawk and leaned his head to the left as Talon landed on his shoulder. Thanks, Talon. Did you find the guys? Takeshi and Sasuke hovered briefly at the top of the gate. They saw a bearded guy dressed in an orange shirt, blue shorts and shades. The guy's hair was pulled back into a ponytail and he was smiling and laughing at the hawk who was pulling on his ear. They looked at each other in relief and exasperation. Naruto. Naruto looked up and saw his brothers. Hey. Wow, it's good to see you guys, but what the hell is going on? He waved at them and just couldn't stop smiling. Naruto stepped back to see them better, then watched open-mouthed as Takeshi flew them down. No fair. You never took me flying. He frowned as they landed in front of them. Takeshi, I want a turn. Come on, take me up. Naruto demanded, hand on his hips. Sasuke was grinning. Idiot. Do you know how worried we've been? He moved forward and swung at Naruto, intending to knock the smile off his face, then looked at his brother in surprise when Naruto caught and held his fist easily. Missed you too, Naruto said quietly, his blue eyes tracing over Sasuke's face. Did you get older while I was gone? He teased, then gasped as Sasuke pulled him into a hug. Sorry I'm late. Naruto wrapped his arms around his brother. Takeshi, wings at rest, approached the two. He glanced at the Anbu briefly and the scene. You didn't. Disbelief and scorn colored his words. His long hair whipped from side to side as he shook his head. Then he was there next to them. Naruto. Naruto opened his eyes and looked up. Takeshi, did you get taller? He pulled back from Sasuke, squeezed his shoulder, then stepped into his other brother's arms. Whoa, Naruto said as after a brief hug, Takeshi spun him around. He laughed then as Takeshi took them up. They didn't go up too far, but it was enough for Naruto's laughter to ring out. It flowed under Takeshi's and Talon's wings as well as over the gate to the people on the other side. The gate stopped the hurrying crowd cold. A few ran up the wall, but with the other ninjas there pushing, it was soon open. The sight that greeted them was 4 Anbu on the ground sitting very still with Sasuke standing near to them, hands on his hips, smiling up at 2 men. Takeshi held Naruto beneath his arms and the teen had his hands out laughing his head off until something caught his eye. Mama, Dad, hey Takeshi, take me down. Naruto looked over his shoulder at his eldest brother. Thanks, this was great. You're welcome. Phoenix says hello. Takeshi felt so light just looking at Naruto and his smile was bright as his brother's. Yeah? Hey Phoenix. Thanks for taking care of Takeshi while I've been gone. Naruto said as Takeshi let him go. He patted his brother's stomach then took off for his parents. Asuma, Guy, Kakashi, Kurenai, Genma, Katetsu and Izumo had helped to open the gates. They stood off to one side as Lady Tsunade and Iruka walked slowly out of the village. They held hands. Iruka was smiling and Tsunade held a hand over her heart. There were tears in her eyes. Friends watched with relief. The air of fear and anger disappeared as they watched the joyful reunion. He's home, Tsunade. Naruto's fine and he's home. Let's go, he's coming. Iruka said, pulling her with him. Suddenly she seemed shy or reluctant to believe Naruto was actually there. It's him. He chose to wear his old colors to come home in. Nobody wears orange like our boy. He laughed, throat full of emotion. Naruto slowed to a walk as he saw everybody. Slowly he took off his shades and placed them on top of his head. Naruto blinked his blue eyes at them. He was still confused about what was going on, but answers would come later. Mama. She looked delicate next to his father. There was something so soft about her. Mama, why the tears? He looked at Iruka who just shook his head. Mama? Naruto bent down and placed his face next to hers and held her. I missed you, Mama. Naruto held his mother gently at first but then tighter as her own hands clutched at him. Iruka couldn't wait for his own hug, so he joined theirs. He stood at their side and put his arms around them both. Naruto, son, you were gone too long. Iruka felt his own tears begin to fall as he rested his face in Naruto's hair. I'm sorry. Sorry. Mama, don't cry. Dad, not you too. Naruto laughed as his own tears fell. He kissed his mother, then lifted his head to kiss his father, then his mother again. Shikamaru walked over to Takeshi and Sasuke. So he's home, finally. He say what kept him. He too couldn't help smiling. Of course not, but what, I can't believe it that these guys attacked him. Sasuke turned to look at the Anbu. He couldn't see their faces because of the animal masks, but the fact they were sitting humbly on the ground and not moving told him they were embarrassed, to say the least. Well, what happened? Why don't you leave the questioning to me, Uchiha? Ibiki sauntered forward. He passed the family with a smile but was now looking down at his men sternly. Ibiki then turned back to look at Naruto. I'll admit he looks different, changed his hair and there's fuzz on his face, but it's clearly Naruto. He looked back at his men. Go back to headquarters and wait for me. I'm sure the Hokage will want to punish you herself, but not right now or even today. Until then, you're mine. He smiled coldly. Sir. Yes, sir. They had knelt on one knee, heads down when Ibiki appeared. The men shivered at Ibiki's smile, then the leader stood and bowed, followed by his men. He started dash away but turned to Sasuke. Please tell him we're sorry. Again he started to leave when Sasuke told him to wait. How was he? He couldn't help be curious about Naruto's skills. The leader paused then spoke. We were intent on stopping him, killing him if we had to, but Naruto wasn't. He held back so as to not hurt us. He only used a fraction of his strength to stop us. Sir, he doesn't look like Naruto. He sighed. I suppose the Rasengan was his way of telling us who he was, since we never gave him a chance. Still, it would have been the perfect opportunity to kill us, but he didn't. Just knocked us on our asses. He rubbed his arm where there was a long bleeding scratch. You meant to kill my brother? Sasuke stepped forward but Shikamaru and Takeshi stopped him. It's a damn good thing I don't know who you are. And Naruto wouldn't have killed fools. He takes pity on the weak of mind. Sasuke snarled. Enough. Go. Ibiki interrupted and pointed a black-gloved hand towards the village. The four dashed away and disappeared. I'd hate to be them. Shikamaru said, feeling sorry for the Anbu squad. He had a feeling they wouldn't be Anbu after today. Yeah, lady, she here. Takeshi started to comment on what the Hokage would do but broke off as Hinata and Lord Hyuga walked out of the gate. Go get him, Hinata, Sasuke said with a smile, crossing his arms over his chest. The words could be taken two ways, either as punishment for being late or welcoming her man home. Her chest rose and fell as she saw him in the embrace of his parents. Hinata blinked several times as she looked at him. Suddenly there were hands on her shoulders. Go to him, daughter. Welcome Naruto home, her father encouraged. Sakura held Lee's hand. She'd been about to go to Naruto herself when Hinata showed up. Sighing, she smiled wistfully, knowing she'd have to wait her turn. Hinata most definitely came first. Feeling so happy and needing something to hug, Sakura brought Lee's hand up between her and held it there tightly. Neji laughed as he rushed forward to keep the fainting Lee from hitting the ground. Flushed with hearts in his eyes and drool running out of his mouth, Lee savored the feel of Sakura's ass. Ah, Sakura. All the Chunin laughed and continued to smile as Hinata slowly put one foot in front of the other. Anticipation filled them as they waited for Konoha's favorite couple to be reunited. What's with this hair? Iruka asked, pulling on the short ponytail. And you need a shave. His hand moved to cup Naruto's jaw. Where were you? Damn it, Naruto, are you trying to make me into an old woman? Tsunade still had tears in her eyes, but she was smiling. She ran her hands over his chest and shoulders, feeling the strength in him. Her hands gripped his torn shirt and she shook him. Mama, you're going to rip off my shirt if you don't stop. Naruto laughed when she did just that. Oh well. He pulled off what was left of his new shirt. You'll never be old, Mama, just more beautiful. He tried to sweet-talk her. Iruka and Tsunade blinked. Naruto was ripped. He had muscles on top of muscles and shoulders out to there. His stomach, he didn't have one. Instead there was a six-pack and it rippled as he moved. Damn, they said as one. Naruto threw back his head and laughed, but when he looked down again he caught his breath. He stared at the vision walking his way. A soft smile graced his face as he saw she had her Byakugan activated. Mama, Dad? He glanced at them once then refocused his gaze on Hinata. He nodded at them absent-mindedly then moved around them to go to Hinata. Hinata opened her mouth then closed it again. Another step and a deep breath. You kept me waiting. Her hands opened and closed at her sides. I know. I'm sorry. Naruto wished for her Kekkei Genkei as his eyes looked over what his hands wanted to touch. You look beautiful. Your hair is longer. His voice had grown husky. Hinata shivered to hear that tone in his voice. So is yours and a beard too. You going to keep it? Another step. I don't know. Do you like it? Whatever you want, sweetheart. Another step. She blinked at the word sweetheart and her breathing quickened. I should punish you for making me worry, Naruto. You scared me, she whispered as a tear slid down her face. Naruto stopped, his eyes blinking hard in response to that lone tear. He got down on both knees. Do what you will, sweetheart. I'm yours. I deserve whatever punishment you can come up with. I'm so sorry, Hinata. He waited regret on his face for causing her pain. Naruto was ready to submit to whatever Hinata decided. She brought her hand up to her mouth as he knelt in the road with tears rolling down his face. There was a shadow circling him. Talon was flying above Naruto. Hinata took a breath and dropped her hand. She moved quickly until she stood before him. He was bigger, a little taller too. She could tell even though he was on his knees. Hinata moved into her gentle fist stance. Tsunade and many others gasped. Was she really going to attack him? Was Naruto just going to let her? Where was the happy reunion they were expecting? The crowd tensed. Do it, sweetheart. If it will help, do it. Naruto nodded. I love you, Hinata. He held his arms out and waited for the pain. He didn't know it, but he was looking at her the way she loved. Hinata let out a sob and delivered 2 jabs to Naruto's body. She watched as his body jerked and his arms fall limply to his sides. Naruto's expression never changed. Hinata moved her arms and aimed for his heart. Hinata, Iruka, Tsunade, Hiashi, Sasuke, Takeshi and Sakura all yelled out as the girl struck the man she loved. Hinata gently placed her hand over his heart. It beat strongly in his chest. She stroked the soft skin and let the tiny hairs tickle her palm. Idiot, I could have really hurt you. She sobbed. I know. It's okay, Hinata. I'm home, sweetheart, I'm home. Naruto wanted with all the world to hold her, but she was in charge. Shush, don't cry. Hinata, please, he whispered as her pain became his. At the same time as his heart took on her pain, he soaked in her touch. Those small hands stroking his flesh and cupping his face. Hinata. She moved so quickly that most missed her restoring his arms, but they did see Naruto surge to his feet and take Hinata into his arms. He held her off the ground and buried his face in her neck. Hinata cupped his head and cried into his hair. This is what they wanted to see. Tsunade held onto Iruka, laughing softly while he let out a huge sigh. Lord Hiashi closed his eyes and stumbled back a step in relief. Many others found their voices again and talked in wondrous voices about what they thought had been about to happen. Naruto, Naruto. Hinata pulled his face up and dipped her head. Suddenly she found her feet on the ground again and Naruto's hands tied about her face. He took away her ability to breathe. She only stayed conscious because Naruto shared his breath with her. He also gave her his tongue and she sucked on it. Hinata held onto his wrists and went on tiptoe. Naruto inhaled her scent like a man desperate for air. Her soft lips welcomed him home. They opened willingly to his invasion and he gave her his love and took hers in return. It seemed like an eternity since they had been this close to each other. Finally Naruto let her lips go to take a huge breath. Gasping, Hinata opened her eyes to stare into eyes so blue as to outshine the sea. She laughed happily then sighed as Naruto once again kissed her. Her hands left his wrists to touch his furred jaw. It was so different, all this hair. It tickled her face and she wondered how it would feel on her body. This time she broke the kiss. Let me touch you. Her eyes traveled over his face as he nodded and smiled at her. Naruto breathed in through his nose as her hands ran over his hair. She broke the band holding back his hair and ran her fingers through it. It's long. Naruto's hair brushed his shoulders. Her thumbs moved over his eyebrows, down his nose, then her hand rubbed themselves over his cheeks and he grinned. Naruto kissed her fingers as they traced his lips. I love you, he said softly. Damn, she scared me, Takeshi said as he looked away and wiping away a tear. Seeing Naruto's pack, he went to pick it up. Damn, he said again. What in the hell has he got in here? Takeshi held the pack out to Sasuke and laughed as the teen almost dropped it. He took it back from Sasuke as they walked over to join Naruto's parents. She scared all of us. Shikamaru jammed his hands in his pockets. But most women are scary. His mother and Tamari being the two main ones to give him chills. What gets me is that he let her. Naruto would have let her kill him. Idiot. Sasuke shook his head, then looked in surprise at Takeshi and Shikamaru's expression of pity. What? You don't know a thing about women, do you? Shikamaru laughed. You submit because if she has to hunt you down, it's worse. Much worse. Naruto just saved his ass from a major butt whooping. Yep, even in my limited experience, I learned that lesson. Naruto may not get off scot-free, but it's like Shikamaru said. Whatever comes next will be minor and Naruto will gladly obey to keep her happy. Takeshi laughed at Sasuke's stubborn expression. You'll learn one day. Whatever. Sasuke muttered as the two of them laughed at him. Iruka looked at them curiously as the boys joined them, but they wouldn't say what they found so funny. He squeezed Tsunade's waist. Let's take him home. We've given all of Konoha enough to talk about for a while, I think. He nodded back towards the gate. It was completely full of people. It seemed everything had come to a standstill in the village with Naruto home. Tsunade blinked then smiled. Yeah, enough of that. She spotted Ibiki. Could you and some of the others send those people back to their own lives? Yes, ma'am. Tell Naruto hi for me. I'm happy he came back to you safely. He nodded with a friendly smile at Iruka, then disappeared to reappear at the gate. Ibiki recruited Guy, Asuma and Kurenai to help him disperse the villagers. He didn't try, nor would it have worked, to try and send the ninja away. They were still smiling and watching the couple. Naruto, son. Iruka approached them reluctantly. He hated to break them apart. Let's go to your mother's house. You've still got a lot of people to say hello to. Iruka placed a hand on Naruto's muscled back. Naruto sighed. He lifted Hinata's head and kissed her lips gently. We've got a date tonight, right? His eyes glowed. Lavender eyes returned the glow. Absolutely. Hinata took one more kiss and moved to his side, holding onto his slim hip. Let's go then. Hey you. Oh, you want Hinata? My lady, Talon wants to greet you. Hawk had landed in Naruto's hair but hopped away when Naruto held up his arm for him. Oh hello Talon. Hinata giggled as the hawk landed on her shoulder, then rubbed its head against her cheek. Look at how big and beautiful you've gotten. Gently she stroked its soft head and back. Naruto. Sakura had left Lee still stunned in Neji's care and ran to her brother. Naruto, welcome back. She jumped and wrapped her arms around his neck. Such a full body tackle should have made him stumble, but Naruto didn't move. He squeezed the breath out of his sister and gave her a wet kiss on her cheek. Sakura gasped for breath. She'd lost it immediately as she slammed into his hard chest, then couldn't take in any air since his muscled arms made contracting her lungs impossible. Don't kill her. Tsunade laughed and tickled her son so he would let Sakura go. Don't you know your own strength? Sakura bent over, pulling air back into her body. Damn Naruto. Your body's so hard. She finally had enough air to speak, then really looked at his physique. Whoa, he could pose in a magazine. Even though she now considered him family, she couldn't deny he was hot. It should be all the training I did. Naruto lifted an arm and flexed his bicep. He grinned slowly as Hinata watched, fascinated. Did you like what you saw, sweetheart? He asked in a low tone. Hinata blushed because when she'd been using her Byakugan, she had of course seen everything. I'll tell you tonight. Her lips matched his grin. Parents right here. Cut that out, you too. Iruka said, covering his ears. He pushed Naruto forward, who just shrugged and caught his fiancée around the waist and kissed her yet again. At last they reached the gate where there stood the rest of his friends and various shinobi. Suddenly the group broke out in cheers and started clapping. Embarrassed, Naruto scratched his head and again wondered what was going on. Seeing Lord Hiashi, he moved forward and embraced him. Father Hiashi, sorry for making her worry. Naruto whispered in the Lord's ear. She did, but Hinata's strong. You two are going to be just fine. Hiashi hugged him tightly, then held Naruto's shoulders and pushed him back so he could take a good look at him. Okay, now I'm scared. Do you think you have enough muscles? Hiashi laughed, then pulled Naruto to him once more. Naruto, what about me? Kakashi was amazed at the change in Naruto. He was 16 but the Naruto before him looked more like a man. I'd like a hug too, and where's Master Jiraiya? Hey sensei. Blue mischievous eyes should have warned Kakashi, but Naruto found that the Jonin wasn't prepared to be glomped because they ended up on the ground. Naruto died laughing. He's been dreaming about that all the way home. The Toad Sage said as he came upon the group. Originally he hadn't wanted to see the welcome Naruto would receive and feel left out, but he was glad that he had seen it. It was what the kid deserved. Naruto said if anyone could stand up to the new him it would be you. That's so sad. Kakashi, knocked out by the kid. The old man shook his head. Whoa. Jiraiya hid behind Lord Hiashi. Evil woman. Stop it. Blame Naruto, it's his fault we're late. Since Lord Hiashi did a special move to break his hold, Jiraiya got behind Ibiki and threatened to reveal an old secret if he dared move. Ibiki blinked and stayed where he was very reluctantly. Naruto got off his sensei and pulled him to his feet. Gotcha. Naruto hugged him for real this time, then went to head off his mother. Stop mama. He's right, it's my fault. Leave the old perv alone. Naruto had to pull her back. Don't hit him, mama. He took Tsunade's hand and kissed it. Tsunade blinked. She'd already powered up her fist and was in full swing to send Jiraiya flying, but Naruto stopped her easily. How'd you do that? Stone walls had crumbled with the slightest touch of her fist and Naruto had gently stopped her. I trained. It's why I left, remember? Naruto raised his eyebrows then pulled his mother into another hug. I thought you were going to do some research. He spoke to Jiraiya. I tried to, but like you, I was stopped by the Anbu. Jiraiya stayed behind Ibiki but looked around at the gathered shinobi. Is there trouble? We didn't come across any threats on the way here. Tsunade hid against Naruto's chest. Long story. I'll explain it later. She looked up into Naruto's face. Let's get you some clothes. Tsunade had to pat his stomach, it really was hard. Wait mama. Shikamaru. Naruto had to greet everyone. All of his friends were treated to breath-stealing hugs. Where's Tuchi and Ayame? Naruto searched the crowd. Cooking. Kakashi said, rubbing his back from landing so hard on the ground. He thought you might be hungry. Naruto chuckled. He knows me so well. All right then, to mama's house we go. Hinata my love. He held out his hand for her. Right here my love. She gave it to him without hesitation. The both laughed as Talon settled between them on Naruto's shoulder. And baby makes 3. Not yet, Tsunade and Iruka said. Little brother, what the hell is in this pack? It weighs a ton. Takeshi exclaimed when they reached the Hokage's residence. Huh, oh thanks Takeshi. I forgot all about it. Naruto took the pack easily. Let me wash up. I got kinda sweaty fighting those Anbu. Be right back. He started towards his room with Hinata following behind him. You better stay here sweetheart. I don't trust myself alone with you just yet. When she blushed he had to kiss her before taking off to his room with Tsunade following this time. Iruka hesitated for a second then shrugged and went with them. Naruto dropped the heavy pack with a thud and stripped out of his shorts when his mother entered the room. Mama, I can wash myself. He stood in orange boxers with his hands on his hips then sighed when Iruka came in too with Talon sailing in just before Iruka closed the door. So wash already. Forgive me, you've been gone a while and we missed you Naruto. She shooed him into his bathroom but left the door cracked so they could talk to him. Tsunade sat on his rarely used bed. What happened son? Why are you a month late? Iruka asked as he planted himself by the bathroom door. Talon again slipped by him when the shower started. You love bath time don't you Talon? Here. Naruto splashed some water and laughed at the hawk's antics then left him to play as he soaped up his hair. We came back through the sand and I spent some time with Gaara. He helped me with some of my training. Watch out for the soap. You know it burns your eyes. Naruto was quiet for a moment. I didn't want to send Talon on by himself when I didn't know when I would be following so I kept him with me and we came home together. That's all. I didn't want to come home until I learned everything Pervy Sage intended for me to. Guess I'm a slow learner. Move it water hog. There was more happy laughter from the shower. Tsunade looked at Iruka and shook her head. He hadn't finished so he didn't come home. Of course. She threw up her hands in disgust. Naruto, you scared us to death. We were about to send out teams to search for you. Your mother was going to invade other countries just to find you. Tsunade would have been in everyone's bingo books, a traitor to the land of fire. Damn it boy, you could have sent one of the sand's messenger birds if you didn't want to send Talon. Iruka yelled into the bathroom. Naruto inhaled sharply. He blinked several times, water clinging to his eyelashes. Naruto stared down at his pet still playing in the water. He took a deep breath then quickly finished his shower. Come here, Talon. Gently he patted the wet feathers. You hungry? You can go hunt if you want or go hang out with Hinata or Takeshi. The hawk stared at him sensing something was up. He chirped and stayed where he was on the sink. Naruto smiled. Say something, Naruto. Iruka barely restrained himself from barging into the bathroom. I'll be out in a minute, Dad. Naruto kept his tone even. He needed his pack, so he wrapped a towel around his waist and without looking at either parent, grabbed it and disappeared back into the bathroom. Iruka couldn't believe Naruto had brushed him off and he turned the knob only to stop at Tsunade's voice. Wait, Iruka, just wait. We're all a little emotional. Come, sit by me. She patted the bed. Tsunade, you were about to ruin your life for him. Many of us were. God, he has to have a better answer than that he wasn't done training yet. Iruka sat and took her hand. What about Sasuke and Hinata, for God's sake? They were torn up thinking something had happened to him. He stopped when she reached up to stroke his jaw. I know, I was here, remember? I want answers just as much as you do, so give him a minute to gather his thoughts, Iruka, but most of all, he's home. You said it before, he's home. Naruto is just in the next room, our child. Tsunade knew the anger was just there under the surface, but her longing for Naruto had been appeased and that seemed all she could think about. Yes, but he's still such a kid no matter what he looks like now. Jiraiya was with him, why didn't he send word? He knew he'd be worried. That old toad's going to hear a few words from me. Iruka was looking forward to that since there was a tight smile on his face. No, I told Mama and now I'm telling you, leave Jiraiya alone. Naruto left the bathroom with Talon on his shoulder. Gone were the bright, cheerful clothes. He wore black pants and black shirt. Blame me. He crossed his arms and stood looking down at his parents. Yeah, he said I should have sent word, but I said no. I wanted to surprise you, so I made him promise me. We left so I could learn to better protect myself and you, and I wasn't coming home until that training was over. We were close to home and I had the new stuff almost perfect and I wasn't leaving the sand until I had it down. You were waiting. Hinata was waiting. Sasuke, Sakura and Takeshi were waiting, but you guys were home and safe and you knew I was with Jiraiya. I had made up my mind when I left to do everything in my power to come home to you stronger. We even talked about me being gone longer. I knew it was a possibility. Didn't you? His blue eyes looked from one to the other, then he spoke again before they could. I'm sorry. The training took longer to finish than I hoped. I'm sorry I kept Talon with me. Automatically he reached up and stroked the hawk as it reacted to his name. Maybe I was homesick and didn't want to let him go even to tell you we would be late, but I thought you trusted us. If not me then Jiraiya, he'd never let anything happen to me, Mama, not when it meant facing you, the only person he truly cares for. Naruto stared at her a second then began to pace. You're right, Dad. I'm still a kid and I made a stupid decision, but wasn't it just as stupid as what you guys were about to do? You'd risk war for me? War, Mama? You're my parents. Why would you do something so stupid? I know you love me, but to let yourself be put on the chopping block because I'm late. Damn, what the hell were you thinking? Dad, why didn't you stop her? Did you all lose your common sense? Yes I did, damn you. Naruto, you were gone. You weren't here, with me. I wanted you, home? Tsunade exploded off the bed, scaring Talon into flight, and she got in Naruto's face. Your uncle, Nawaki, Dan, I can't lose you too, baby. You're all I've got. Tsunade cupped his face gently then cried as he held her. Ah, Mama. Don't, shush Mama. Naruto tried to comfort her. I'm here. I didn't mean to scare you. You weren't here, Naruto, we missed you. Now you know, son, we love you beyond reason. Iruka was on his feet as well. He watched the taller, stronger Naruto hold his mother. Think about it, Naruto. Talon's become like a child to you. If he disappeared, you'd dice him inside until you knew he was home safe again, wouldn't you? He watched as Naruto stiffen then shiver, his once strong frame overcome with emotion. Iruka hurried over to them. Shush, it's okay, Naruto. Son. He joined Tsunade in once again holding Naruto. Tsunade stroked his hair as he bent his head over her shoulder. We all made bad decisions. Mine possibly the worst. She sighed and knew there would be many sleepless nights as she imagined all the horror her actions could have caused. Now you know, baby, I'd do anything for you. Anything. Tsunade spoke clearly without doubt and absolutely sincerity. We all would Naruto. All those people at the gate, every single one was ready to go searching for you. Ow. Iruka rubbed his chin as Naruto's head jerked up. The teen looked skeptical. Yep, they wanted you home too. Naruto shook his head. He couldn't believe that. They were Konoha shinobi but they weren't his friends. They were going to do it for you guys. They'd follow you anywhere mama and dad, everybody respects you. Naruto ran a weary hand over his face. I love you guys but don't ever do that again. I don't care if I've been missing for a year, don't do it again. He gripped Iruka's vest and shook him then looked sternly at his mother. And you don't go missing and expect us not to worry. Iruka countered then gave Naruto a small smile. We had a similar conversation before didn't we? We'll do what we have to protect our son just as you will to protect us. Iruka shrugged and ran a hand through Naruto's hair. All this hair and why didn't you shave? Tsunade laughed. And that's it. You talk to us and we'll talk to you and we won't cause any wars. She pulled his face to hers and kissed him. We should go. Hinata's probably jealous that we're here with you. No, that's not it. You guys, war? Naruto flung up his arms. All those shinobi were ready to follow you. I don't need this kind of guilt. The leaf would have been ruined because of me. He hit himself on the chest. Iruka smirked suddenly happy. Didn't happen. You came home just in time. Naruto gaped at him. Dad, why are you smiling? This isn't a joke. Mama look, there will be times when you won't know where I am. You can't order everyone to do stupid stuff. Promise me. It was important for him to know that they wouldn't throw everything away just for him. Nope, no can do. She too was feeling really happy. Naruto understood what they were feeling and he was trying to take responsibility for it but they had all been at fault. What mattered is that it was over, everything had worked out and her baby was home. And I didn't order them to do anything, they volunteered, for you Naruto. Tsunade shook him or tried to, his hard body didn't move. They wanted you home, he sighed. If they did it was because they didn't want anyone else to have me. Jinchuriki are very valuable weapons. Naruto was tired. All he'd wanted was to come home and be with those he loved but so much more had happened and not all of it good. Yeah, I think I'm going to get Hinata and go home. Naruto turned away from them and reached for his pack. Naruto, Tsunade sighed and looked at Iruka. Don't go, please not yet. Everybody's here, Sasuke and Takeshi, Kakashi. And Tuchi's on his way with ramen for you. She walked up behind him and lay against his back. Sakura's anxious to spend time with you and I'm sure Hanabi's here by now too. Don't disappoint them all Naruto. I'm sorry, your homecoming should have been special but we kind of forgot that. Iruka moved into Naruto's line of sight. We just got you back, stay son. We need to be with you. I need you guys too. It hurt not having you guys to talk to or these, I missed these. Naruto grabbed his mother's hands and pulled them tighter around his waist. No hugs for 7 months, it was like it was before, it seemed like I was all alone again. Naruto let his dad hold him. Held between his parents Naruto knew he wasn't alone anymore and he was loved. Jiraiya never babied him and he hadn't wanted it, that wouldn't have helped him to get stronger but the nights had been so cold and lonely that it had been hard to believe that he was no longer alone in the world that he did in fact have family. Again Talon didn't want to be left out and hopped onto Naruto's head. He peered down at Naruto and chirped. Naruto laughed. Talon was indeed like his child. We didn't forget you boy. You're my family too. He lifted a hand and let Talon nibble on his fingers while he rested against his father. Okay, time to go face my brothers and sister now. Ain't no telling what Hinata's going say or do. I forgot how much her gentle fist hurts. Naruto lifted his head and smiled at his father. Protect me? Iruka threw back his head laughing. He gave Naruto a smacking kiss on the forehead. No way. He stepped out of Naruto's way and took Tsunade into his arms. They hugged each other grateful to have their Naruto back. Hinata had been standing just inside large living area waiting on Naruto. Her gaze had met her father's then Sasuke's when they could hear yelling coming from Naruto's room. She was worried. Yes, she still had many questions for Naruto about why he was late but she didn't want anger today. Naruto was finally home and she'd forgiven him and just wanted to hold him. Mama Tsunade and Iruka had missed him terribly but they should have put aside the questions and just rejoiced in having him home again. Say nothing, Hinata told them. Don't ask him where he's been. They must not have liked his answer. Hinata looked over at Jiraiya, who stood quietly against one wall, his arms folded and head down. I want him happy. I want to be happy with him. Please. Hinata looked about the room at their family imploringly. Sasuke and Takeshi looked at each other, then at Sakura. All three nodded. Hanabi looked at her father and he nodded, so she did too. Neji also inclined his head. Kakashi just shrugged. Thank you. She heard a door open and turned quickly. Hinata smoothed her hair and straightened her clothes. She wished she'd run home and changed into something pretty for him. Hinata moved so she wouldn't be blocking the doorway. In moments they appeared. Naruto was between his parents, with both of them holding him about the waist. They were smiling, but you could tell they'd all been crying. Talon came flying down the hall. He circled around Hinata, then went to Takeshi's lap and started talking to his stomach. It was what was needed to set them all to laughing. That's our boy, Naruto said, kissing his mother, squeezing father, then going to Hinata. Missed you. He kissed his lovely fiancée. Hanabi jumped up. Naruto. She had been at school and had missed his arrival, so she hadn't received a hug yet. Hanabi. He mocked her but picked her up and held her tight. Missed you too. Did you keep Hinata company while I was gone? Hanabi held tight. Your body change. You're hard, Naruto. She pulled back and stroked his shoulder. Wow. She looked over at her sister. He won't be comfortable sleep on at all. Guess you'll have settle for a pillow or get your own bed. She told me she liked sleeping on your chest, but it's too hard now. The girl patted his muscular chest. Hanabi. Hinata blushed as everyone cracked up. That was supposed to be between us, sisters. Hanabi was getting curious about boys and Hinata had told her some of the things she liked about Naruto. You won't sleep on my chest anymore? I worked hard for nothing? Naruto's eyes twinkled. Hinata had missed his teasing. You haven't begun to work hard yet. She teased him back, getting some whistles from the room and more laughter. I'll aim to please. With Hanabi still in his arms, Naruto again leaned down for a kiss. Will you two stop? I remind you, parents and a child are here listening. Iruka said, moving to take a seat. Yes please. Let's keep Hanabi innocent for a while longer. Lord Hiashi commented, but he was too happy to be upset about a few words. His family was back together. Jiraiya. Tsunade crossed the room and saw her fellow Sannin tense. Mama. Naruto put Hanabi down and hurried over to them. Hush. Tsunade took Naruto's hand. Thank you. You kept him safe and brought him back home. I wish you had sent word, but you're both home. She crooked a finger at him and smiled as Jiraiya warily lowered his head. Gently Tsunade kissed his cheek. Thanks, old friend. Jiraiya blushed. You're welcome. I only did what he asked. It was his decision. He looked from Tsunade to Iruka. He's a teenager. In this, you should have made the decision. Iruka didn't sound angry, but he definitely wasn't happy. Dad, I thought we weren't going to do this. Naruto looked wearily over at his father. Sorry. Later, Jiraiya. Iruka promised. Dad. He stopped when Jiraiya put a hand on his shoulder. He has a right to chew me out. You're his child, Naruto. It's enough that you kept your mother from hitting me. Sometimes you work miracles, kid. Jiraiya grinned at him. How's your chakra? Takeshi stumbled, forgetting that Hanabi didn't know yet. I've got so many questions. Talon's been chattering non-stop. You must have had quite a time. He nodded his head, letting Naruto know that the phoenix had gotten an earful and that she had in turn told him some of it. Better. Not great, but better. Oh yeah? Guess I'll have to a word with him. Talon, don't go telling tales. He shook his finger at the hawk, who ducked his head and hopped up to Takeshi's shoulder and tried to hide in the man's long ponytail. Naruto smiled indulgently, then yawned. Let's sit down. There's been a lot of excitement today and no doubt you worked yourself to the bone. Tsunade pulled him over to an empty couch, more than ready to mother him. Hinata, also needing to be with him, sat down on his other side. Hanabi climbed into his lap and Sakura knelt down at his feet. Don't get any ideas, I just missed you. Sakura said, smiling up at him and propping herself up on his knee. Naruto looked left, then right, then down and grinned. This is nice. What is wrong with this picture? Neji laughed. Sasuke, what happened? You usually get all the girls. He couldn't wait to tell the others. This is a special case. I'd never be top dog with these ladies. Sasuke shook his head. It was funny, Naruto surrounded by fawning women and a first. It won't happen again. Jealous? Just shut up and let me enjoy this. Naruto groused playfully. He pulled Hinata close. Hanabi lay on his chest despite its hardness and Tsunade leaned close to kiss his arm. Really, can we do this more often? As they laughed, a door opened and the smell of ramen wafted into the house. Shizune followed by 6 shinobi carrying the special food and Tuchi and Ayame entered the room. Welcome home Naruto. Ready to eat? His mouth dropped open. Naruto looked from his women to the food. He didn't want to move but his mouth was watering at the smell his favorite food. He looked down at Hinata hopefully then his mother. Feed me? Beautiful blue eyes pleaded. Groans and laughter filled the room. Naruto, their son, brother, fiancé and friend was home. He was still the crazy idiot they all loved and he was home. Hinata left the bathroom to find Naruto already asleep on the bed. She smiled, she had expected this. Of course it meant they wouldn't make love but she didn't mind. Her Naruto, the love of her life was home again and she couldn't be happier. She checked the door making sure it was locked then giggled silently as she saw that Talon was sleeping as well with his head under one wing. He'd been by their side all day and apparently was just as tired as Naruto. Thanks Talon for bringing him home safely. Hinata used one fingertip to stroke the hawk's back. He lifted his head and looked at her silently before sighing and lowering his head once more. Such good boy. Sleep well. Hinata threw away the milk carton that Naruto had drained when they'd finally got home. After a quick trip to the bathroom he'd begun stripping and getting ready for bed. She'd left him to take a shower and let him relax in his home. Apparently he'd tried to stay awake but exhaustion had taken hold. Since early that morning he'd been going non-stop. Checking the clock, Hinata saw that it was 1 in the morning and yawned automatically. Normally none of them stayed up late, as Ninja's sleep was very important but this had been a special occasion. You came home. She now stood next to the bed and stared at him as he was bathed in the soft glow of the bedside lamp. Naruto had one foot still on the floor and one arm over his face. He probably thought he'd just rest his eyes for a moment then simply fell asleep. God Naruto, you're so beautiful. Hinata whispered. The muscles in his arm bulged even sleep. Her eyes traced over every length and definition his body had gained. She could clearly see his abdominal muscles and he was even slimmer about the hips if that were possible. Hinata wondered if her hands could circle one of his rock-hard thighs. You worked very hard to come home looking like this. She laughed softly. Getting to know this new body of her lover's was going to be so much fun but later. Tonight she was content to sleep in his arms and listen to his heart. Hinata turned off the lamp then cupped Naruto's knee and lifted it onto the bed. She resisted stroking him though it was tempting. Huh? Naruto woke slightly confused. It's just me Naruto. Hinata said softly cupping his cheek. She could feel tears in her eyes. Naruto thinks he's still out on his training mission. He's being so gentle, even in sleep. Yes Naruto, it's me. I'm with you. Hinata returned his kisses then slipped her leg between his and circled his small waist to stroke his lovely back. Go to sleep now. I love you Naruto. I love you with all my heart. Hinata kissed his collarbone and hummed softly. In moments he was asleep again. It hurt to know how desperately he'd missed her as she had him. The strength in his hands didn't relax as he held her because he couldn't bear to let her go. At least that's what she believed and it pleased her to think so for finally being this close to him. Hinata never wanted to let him go again. And I won't. If you leave again, I go with you. Never again Naruto. She kissed him again and stroked his back, inhaled his male scent. Hinata rubbed her face against him sighing. There was no place on earth better than where she was right now. Sasuke laughed as he approached Naruto's apartment. Takeshi was sitting on the steps with Talon on his shoulder. I guess they're not up yet, or otherwise occupied. He joined Takeshi on the steps looking up at the closed door. According to this guy, they're still sleeping. Takeshi gestured with his head to the hawk. We did keep him up pretty late and monopolized his time. I think we owe them this time alone. He was embarrassed remembering how they'd all kept the couple from being alone. Sasuke rubbed his neck. Yeah we did didn't we? Come on, let's get out of here and head off the others. At Takeshi's look of shock he explained. If we're here, won't everybody else show up looking for him too? It's just been one day so it's hard to believe he's home again. I guess that makes sense. Takeshi pushed himself to his feet then watched as Talon took flight. Going hunting, he said watching the hawk disappear. The two walked side by side and it wasn't long before they met Neji, Lee and Tenten on their way to Naruto's place. In moments all 9 Chunin were on their way to one of the training fields. No, they weren't going train since they'd been given the day off, but it was a place to hang out and give Hinata and Naruto some alone time. I can't believe they actually feed him. Tenten was still shaking her head over that one. Only family had gone with Naruto back to the Hokage's residence. Neji had told them later what had happened. Sakura shrugged. He's been gone so long, they wanted to do whatever to make him happy. Remember, Naruto's never been spoiled, at all. It's not something they would normally do, but yesterday, it seemed the most natural thing to do. Although she hadn't given in to the temptation to feed him, Hinata, Lady Tsunade and even Hanabi had each fed Naruto a bowl of ramen. Naruto had eaten it up, the attention and the ramen. Yeah, I get the feeling it was pretty rough on him, being gone like that. It may have been silly, but Naruto needed it, Sasuke said as he sat beneath a huge tree. Not only Naruto but Hinata and Lady Tsunade too. He's so very important to them that they would have done anything for him yesterday if it meant staying close to his side or seeing him smile. I imagine Iruka wanted to do more for Naruto as well, but there wasn't much for him to do. We were all pulling Naruto our way, anxious to be with him. Well, I know I was. Takeshi said, sitting cross-legged next to Sasuke. No, you're right. As much as Naruto was a loud-mouthed jerk when we were younger, I've come to know him better since the first Chunin exams. Shikamaru lay on his back staring up through the leaves at the puffy white clouds. I wanted to talk to him, hear about his training and the things he saw. I wanted to play a game of Go with him since he said he'd actually learned the game. He's not the kid he was then. Yeah, he's still got that big laugh and happy smile, but he'd grown up a lot too. I figure he's going to wish he was still on the road with all of us hovering around him all the time. He squinted as he tried to decide if he saw fish or some fruit hidden in the clouds. Lee looked at the three of them all quiet and contemplative over Naruto. I just want to fight him. Don't tell me none of you are curious as to just how much stronger he's gotten. He stood up in his excitement, his voice echoing out over the field. Sakura just reached up and grabbed his clenched fist and pulled. Quietly and adoringly Lee sat again and smiled at her. Not so loud, Lee, she admonished him. Lee nodded vigorously, then talked in a loud whisper, holding his hand extremely still since Sakura was still holding it. You all saw him. Naruto's got all those muscles. If he trained that hard physically, then he had to train just as hard with his taijutsu and ninjutsu. I've just got to fight him. He looked from Sakura for her approval at his tone to the other guys to see if they agreed with him. They were all smiling at Lee. They couldn't help it. Sakura had total control over him. As they chuckled, they exchanged glances and nodded at each other. I can't wait to fight him either. Takeshi said. He was already stronger than us, and though Phoenix and I have improved, I think my blonde brother has passed us by again. He shook his head thinking of all the training he'd done, but just one look at Naruto's muscles had made him feel weak. HMPH. That little idiot is more than likely stronger than all of us put together. Sasuke laughed. He was jealous, but not so much as that he couldn't be proud of Naruto too. Still, like Lee, he couldn't wait to pit his skills against Naruto's, and he was anxious to learn if Naruto had been able to learn something in particular. If he had, Sasuke smiled thinking of him and Naruto. In this one way they could be true brothers. All that aside, Tenten began because she did not want a conversation on who was the best fighter. What about the wedding? Neji shrugged. It will happen when they are ready for it to happen. Yesterday, Naruto was tired, extremely tired even for him. Lady Tsunade noticed it too. She couldn't help it since she's a healer as well as his mother. I believe Uncle may have spoken to Hinata about it. I don't doubt that Hinata will wait until Naruto is well rested before marrying. His nearly white eyes looked over Tenten as he said that. He was clearly imagining another wedding. That and Naruto truly missed Konoha. He had tears in his eyes as we walked around the village before he covered his eyes with his shades. Shino told them, happy that Naruto was wearing his gift to him. Despite the way people treat him or treated him, Naruto missed being at home. We should give him time to settle in, see all his favorite places before hurrying him to get married. Just because Naruto has all this power doesn't mean he doesn't feel the things we do. Emotions and how you handle them are a truer measure of strength than a well-toned body or excellent ninjutsu skills. Shino stood leaning on another tree watching an insect crawl over his hand. Kiba watched him and grinned. Shino was smart, he'd give him that, but Kiba also knew Shino wanted to see what Naruto could do. I'm with Lee. Akamaru and me can't wait to tangle with him. Did you see how his eyes bugged out when he saw Akamaru? Kiba and the dog laughed. In 7 short months, Kiba could now ride Akamaru instead of the other way around. Akamaru had knocked Naruto down much the way Naruto had taken down Kakashi. Well, who wouldn't be curious about what he learned? Tenten said as the conversation came back around to her. I imagine Hinata's just as curious, but I'm sure what she wants most is just to be his forever. She looked at the guys who acted like they didn't understand since it was girl stuff. You're all hopeless. Tenten eyed Neji, who wouldn't meet her eyes, but he was blushing. Well, not all of you. She whispered and reached for his hand. Neji endured his friend's laughter and feeling suddenly bold, he pulled Tenten close and kissed her. Having silenced Tenten and the silly comments from Kiba and Choji, he turned triumphant wide eyes back at them. Besides Naruto, he was the only other one to be in a serious relationship. Don't knock until you know what it's like, boys. His smile was as lordly as Hiashi's. Oh brother. Sasuke groaned, but he was smiling too. What is it like? Lee asked, his curiosity palpable. Not even Sakura's touch could calm him. He held tightly to her hand and looked from Sakura to Neji and Tenten. Sakura tried in vain to loosen his grip. Don't even think about it, Lee. Their laughter carried over the green grass. The wind even had the sound nearing the academy where Iruka worked. He was overly cheerful, completely into teaching the kids the skills they would need. Amino Iruka was a happy man. His adopted son was home and safe. While his students were taking a test, Iruka wandered over to the window to look out on the beautiful day. He remembered that first sight of Naruto, up in the sky, his arms out like he was flying and laughing with pure joy. I wish more of that for you, son, and hopefully you're getting another taste of joy today. Iruka chuckled. He and Tsunade had agreed to leave Naruto and Hinata alone today. They'd monopolized his time all yesterday afternoon, then had joined him when they'd left to go explore the village, and of course the other Chunins were nearby. When they'd finally kissed him goodnight, those 11 had shown no hint of breaking up, so there was no telling when Hinata and Naruto had gone home. The couple hadn't found one opportunity to be alone the whole day. Iruka watched a bird flying in the sky and wondered where Talon was. Surely the bird wasn't stuck inside with the loving couple. Again he chuckled. Those two had been talking in innuendos the whole day. After a while he'd stopped complaining, knowing it was because they truly loved each other. Today was their day to spend time together as man and woman. A few beads of sweat appeared on his brow as he contemplated the upcoming wedding. For some reason he got nervous thinking about standing up before all his friends and vowing to share his life with someone, and it wasn't even his own wedding. Mayu came to mind then. She'd left a week or so after Naruto. They were greatly attracted to each other, but she was wary of the life he and all ninjas led. And that's where they'd left it. Mayu would either come to terms being with a ninja and dealing with secrets or not. And then there's Naruto's secret. How would she handle a stepson almost as powerful as a god? Iruka sighed as he recalled Naruto's long-ago nightmare. Naruto feared losing him to a woman and a family of his own, but Iruka wouldn't do that to Naruto or himself. If Mayu decided to give this relationship a serious try, he'd have to tell her that Naruto, demon and all, was part of the package. That is, if Naruto ever forgives me. A cloud hid the sun as thoughts of the fourth entered his mind, Naruto's true father. He is yours, but he's mine too. When the time comes, please help him to understand. Iruka pleaded silently. Then as the cloud drifted away from the sun, he pushed the dread away. Now was not that time, and he was determined to enjoy every second he had with Naruto until then. Iruka-sensei, we're all finished. Will you quit daydreaming? Konohamaru complained, standing just behind his teacher. Why didn't you take the day off? You're obviously missing Naruto. The boy asked with his hands on his hips, scarf trailing on the floor behind him. We're going to go see him after school lets out, right? Konohamaru asked of his two friends Udon and Moegi. Both nodded along with their leader. No, you will not, and that's an order. Naruto is resting at home today. None of us are going to bother him. He just got home. Konohamaru, let him be for one day. Iruka looked sternly down at the boy. Naruto won't mind. He must have been to some amazing places, right? Konohamaru's eyes got huge and he clenched his tiny fists in excitement. Naruto won't mind, tomorrow. Today he just wants to spend time at home. I mean it, Konohamaru, if I find out you bothered Naruto today. Iruka stopped thinking of a suitable punishment. Well, for starters, you won't be allowed to learn any new jutsus with the rest of the class. I'll make you wait until almost the end of the school year and you'll have to stay every day to clean the classrooms, by yourself. Iruka pointed his finger at Konohamaru, whose mouth had dropped open in shock. Better leave Naruto alone, Konohamaru. How are you going to become Hokage if you don't know any jutsus? Udon asked, pushing up his glasses. Moegi just shook her head. Naruto wants to spend time with Hinata, silly. He can play with us later. She's always going to come first for him. She suddenly understood why Iruka wanted them to stay away from Naruto. It's so romantic, being in love. She sighed, blushed and looked at Konohamaru shyly. Konohamaru shuddered and looked back at Iruka. Yeah? He'll be free tomorrow, right? Then I can wait until then. The little boy edged back towards his seat, avoiding Moegi. Iruka didn't try to stop his laughter. He herded them back to their seats. It was time to get back to work. Have fun, you two. Tsunade hummed as she stamped never-ending stacks of paper. Several times Shizune had stared at her in shock from the doorway. Once when she dared to enter the office with more work, Shizune had quickly touched her forehead and asked if she was all right. Tsunade had just laughed and she did so again. Although she wouldn't see Naruto today, or at least she doubted that she would, her son was at last home again. She continued to hum and smile as she thought of Naruto. Those two were probably still in bed. Last night, they'd hardly left each other's side. As they walked about the village, he gained a lot of attention. So much so that they had their own parade following them. Many ninjas had joined in the walk, asking questions about his journey and training, but Naruto refrained from getting into that too much, just wanting to enjoy being home. Like Iruka, she worried that people might try to bother him today in order to satisfy their curiosity, but first thing that morning, Tsunade had taken care of that. 4 former Anbu had been assigned to keep people away from Naruto and Hinata's apartment. Tsunade's smile widened. That was just the beginning of their punishment. Just you idiots wait. You'll think Ibiki is a pussycat when I'm through with you. Ha, what are you laughing at? Jiraiya asked as he jumped into the room. He noticed that her joy from yesterday had carried over to today. He took a seat and stretched out his legs before him. Why, if it isn't the Toad Man? Tsunade looked over his lounging frame. Because she'd been so happy to see Naruto yesterday, she hadn't really given her old friend much attention, but as her eyes looked him up and down, Tsunade saw some changes. You've lost some weight, Jiraiya, and you worn to the bone. She got up quickly and went to him. Her soft hand caressed his cheek. Was it that bad? Jiraiya blinked. He'd agreed with Naruto when the boy didn't want to tell everyone the extreme measures they'd gone through to train him, but just like Naruto's muscles, Jiraiya couldn't hide his weariness. He's a tough kid with stamina to spare, and I did my best to keep up with him. I'll be okay now that we're back in one place. He missed her hand the moment she took it away, then watched as she went to a locked cabinet on the other side of the room. Tsunade got out several ingredients, a bowl and grinder. Taking them back to her desk, she mixed together the different medicines, then poured it into a small container. Here, drink this every morning and evening. Fix it like you do tea. It should help bring back your strength. Jiraiya smiled and nodded his gratitude. It wasn't often she was this nice to him, so he planned to enjoy it. He put the little jar in one of his pockets and looked up to see her sitting on the edge of the desk, still staring at him. What? Tell me what kind of training you did. How did Naruto get such a ripped body? How was he able to stop me? Tsunade prided herself on her strength. Being able to totally destroy objects as well as enemies with just one punch of her fist was her signature move, but Naruto had caught and held her fist easily. He laughed. She's upset she can't use that against him anymore. Actually, Naruto figured that one out on his own. He wanted to be stronger, so I told him to picture the strongest person he knew and how best to stop them. Naruto picked his mother. Jiraiya smiled as her cheeks flushed. Somehow he was able to do whatever it is you do, so it was no big deal to him to gently grab your deadly fist and kiss it. Wait, so Naruto can break walls just like me? Tsunade couldn't help feeling proud of him. I'm not telling. I'll let Naruto show you himself. Jiraiya sat up in the chair, groaning just a little. He was tired. That's one of the reasons I stopped by this morning. You should give Naruto an assessment test. You know, to see just how much he's improved and to prove that he didn't keep you guys waiting for no good reason. Oh, and make it soon. I just want to sack out for a while, so let's get that test over and done with. Jiraiya wanted to be there to see everyone's reactions to Naruto's growth as a shinobi. Tsunade crossed her arms. You mean you want to go look at half-women? Did his training keep you from your favorite pastime? She asked dryly. What better way to rest than having some lovely ladies to look at? He grinned unrepentant. And it did, yes. There were only a few beauties who were treated to some time with the legendary Sannin Jiraiya. He would have struck a pose but didn't feel like moving. Besides, I figure the kid will be getting married soon and I want to be feeling better for that. Yes, his wedding. Well, the plans are done. Naruto just has to pick a day. Tsunade moved around her desk to sit down. An assessment? I would like to see what he's learned. Maybe in a few days. I'll have him square off against Kakashi. That should tell me the level of his strength. What? She asked when Jiraiya shook his head. There are few ninjas as strong as Kakashi, Jiraiya. Even you should know that. Her hands pressed against the desk. Of course Kakashi's strong but he's not enough. Maybe throw in a few more Jonin or let Naruto fight Neji, Sasuke, Lee, Kiba and Choji as well as Kakashi all at the same time. Then maybe you'll get an idea of how strong Naruto's become. Jiraiya told her in all seriousness. She blinked at him. Tsunade searched his face looking for the lie but there was none. She sat back in her chair and sighed. So strong so quickly? Naruto against 6 people? Or telling me he would win? Then immediately she thought of the fox within him. He'll be using, no? Jiraiya was shaking his head and grinning. Nope, Naruto will use his own chakra, not that he didn't train with the fox's chakra too but for the assessment it will be all Naruto and Naruto alone. And I didn't say he would win but having that many people to fight will challenge him. Each of them has very different styles and don't forget, Naruto's got his shadow clones. He can create hundreds of them without breaking a sweat. I just think that fighting those guys will best demonstrate his ability. I'm sure it got boring for him to always be fighting me. Jiraiya chuckled. Naruto had in fact complained about that. Tsunade wasn't sure she wanted to believe him but then Naruto's determination was like no other. He could possibly be strong enough to take on that many people and come out barely winded. I'll talk to him about it tomorrow. She said quietly wanting to talk to him now and see him in action but this was his day with Hinata. Great, well I'm going back to bed I think. Didn't know how damn tired I was until we got home. The Sannin stretched and yawned. He walked around the desk intending to go out the way he came in. Oh yeah, I had another reason for stopping by this morning, here. Jiraiya tossed a heavy packet onto Tsunade's desk. The pictures you wanted. I took them when the kid wasn't aware of what I was up to. Enjoy. He gave her one of his big smiles then with a wave was gone. Tsunade stared after him for a minute then snatched up the heavy envelope. Carefully she opened it and drew out the first picture. It was taken shortly after he'd left them. Naruto sat staring off into space, a melancholy expression on his face. Talon sat on his shoulder also staring out into the horizon. Her son looked so sad and tears formed in her eyes. The next was of Talon waking Naruto up by trying to feed him something dead. Tsunade laughed through her tears. She spent the next several hours just going through the pictures one by one and when she heard the academy bell releasing the students for the day, she headed there to share these treasures with Naruto's father. This was the second time she'd woken up but Naruto still slept. She'd heard Talon chirruping early this morning and had reached up to open the window for him. It had been a while since she'd taken care of the hawk so she'd forgotten about leaving the window open so he could go in and out when he needed to. No sooner than she'd gotten the window open, the brown and gold hawk slipped out with small shriek of thanks. Her movement had jostled Naruto and he pulled her back to him, clutched her around the waist and buried his face in her hair. So Hinata had snuggled into his embrace and gone back to sleep. Now it was late morning if not afternoon already and Naruto was still sleeping. She could feel his warm breath on her shoulder. One hand cupped while the other rested against her belly, occasionally stroking the tender skin. She loved it. For 7 long and lonely months, she'd lain in this very bed with only a stuffed fox. It wasn't a big bed by any means but without Naruto it felt too big. Carefully she removed the hand holding her and turned over. She wanted to see him. Automatically and without waking, Naruto moved with her. His arm became her pillow and he shifted his hips forward letting his top leg mix with hers. Naruto's free hand stroked her soft hip before resting heavily on her plump bottom. Hinata smiled as she looked at him. He looked wild with his hair so long and the beard on his face. Looking closely at his face, she saw tiny lines about his eyes. My poor baby, you really worked hard didn't you? She leaned close and gently kissed each eye. Her soft hand moved to lay flat against his non-existent stomach. "Hey you," she whispered. "Thanks for taking care of him. Well, you do it because you're a part of him, but still, thanks." Hinata patted the strong flesh. "Even with you sharing your strength with him, Naruto exhausted himself, didn't he? I can't even begin to imagine the rigors he put himself through for us." She closed her eyes and moved her head until her lips rested over his heart. "I'm sorry, Naruto, Fox. You both worked so hard just to protect us." A tear wet her lashes. We did, but we don't want apologies, just your love." His gravelly voice sounded above her head and Naruto chuckled when she jerked, startled. "Morning, sweetheart." Using his chin, he pushed her head so that he could kiss her. And Naruto kissed her. The arm that had been her pillow slid down her back, pushing her pelvis forward. The leg between hers rose until it rested against her while his other hand gripped her knee and pulled her leg over his hip. He moaned as plunged his tongue into the depths of her mouth. It was like he was a starving man presented with a feast. Lips and tongues were sucked, tickled and teased. Teeth nibbled at supple flesh. Naruto pulled back to smile and stare into her eyes. He could feel her body readying itself for him. "You're sure? We're safe?" He kissed at her tears and his fingers never stopped moving. Hinata nodded quickly and reached for him. He was hot and hard. Her breath caught in her throat. "I promise, we're safe. We'll have babies later." Her heart skipped a beat at the thought of making babies with Naruto, but now was not the time. He was so hard it hurt and her soft head was killing him. Naruto rolled Hinata over onto her back. He let her guide him to her entrance. "Ah, damn." Naruto blinked at the feel of her. It was like their first time all over again. His skin was touching hers without anything between them. He rested his forehead on hers, staring into her eyes, and went home. Talon landed on the windowsill and stared down at them. At first it looked like they were playing, but they weren't. He knew what they were up to. With a shuffle of wings, he turned to look out on the village and wait for his master and mistress to finish. "I never, ever want to move again. I want to stay right here for the rest of my life," Naruto said with a replete sigh. "Sounds like a plan to me, but we may have to roll over every now and again." Hinata laughed and folded one leg over his back, trapping him with her silken thighs. "Besides, I need time to learn this new body of yours. I can't say I ever cared much one way or the other for muscles, but I'm loving these." Naruto laughed deeply and pushed up to look down in her face. "Well, this is just a nice side effect to all the training, but I'm glad you like my muscles and I give you permission to love this body as much and as long as you want to." Her beauty and her complete and utter acceptance of him was all he needed. Hinata laughed with him and fell in love yet again. He looked so happy right now. Somehow she would do everything in her power to always make him this happy. "Your permission? You do remember that I can paralyze you whenever I want. I'll have my wicked way with you and you won't be able to do a thing to stop me." She tugged on his ears, bringing his mouth to hers. Naruto felt excitement run through him. "You promise?" He squirmed as her fingers tickled his sides. Their play led to another round of love-making, and the only reason they didn't start another was Naruto's stomach and Talon was tired of waiting on them. They showered with much laughter, then in a t-shirt for Hinata and shorts for Naruto they set about making the biggest meal they could with almost everything they had in the house. "So you're okay with Talon staying with us?" Naruto fed the hawk a piece of bread. "I missed him like crazy every time I sent him home. Talon's good company." He rubbed the hawk's soft head. "I wouldn't dream of separating you two. He's taken on your personality." Hinata laughed as the hawk now came to her to be fed. Then she looked up at Naruto. "You make it sound like you were alone out there, Naruto. Didn't you have any fun with Master Jiraiya?" She reached over and wiped some sauce from his lip. Naruto grabbed her hand, kissed it. "Jiraiya, funny how I don't call him pervy sage all the time anymore. Yeah, he can be a lot of fun, but when it comes to training, he's a real taskmaster. There's no babying from him or much help. Some stuff I was on my own." Naruto looked out the window, seeing the past. "At night when I fell down and couldn't move anymore, he'd tell me stories about when he was growing up. Stuff about Mama and the third Hokage. I liked that part and tried to stay awake for it, but often went to sleep to his voice." Naruto squeezed her hand, then started eating again. "Don't tell me you slept outside the whole time you were gone." "It was cold." Hinata looked incredulous. She'd often wondered but figured they'd go into towns or villages when the weather got bad. Naruto chewed and looked at her shocked face. He wondered how much he should tell her. It would worry her even though it was all said and done. Sweetheart, you know ninjas can't train around ordinary people, especially me. They'd get hurt. We visited towns when we were out of food, needed new clothes, or the pervert in Jiraiya overruled his common sense. Hinata, I survived and came home. Okay? Her hair was so long now that it covered her and touched her waist. Unable to resist, Naruto reached out to touch it. She shook her head and leaned into him. You don't have to suffer so much, Naruto. It wasn't necessary to train in freezing temperatures and to fall down exhausted because you'd worked from sunrise to sunset. Damn it, Naruto. I don't want you to suffer anymore. Hinata stood abruptly and went over to the sink, her back to him. Talon looked from one to the other, chirruped at Naruto. It's okay, boy. He reassured the hawk. Here, drink some water. Naruto poured some into a bowl and pushed it towards the hawk. Slowly he rose to his feet and went to Hinata. Naruto circled her waist. You're worrying the baby, he said into her hair. Hinata laughed softly as she was supposed to. She shook her head. I'm sorry, Naruto. I didn't mean to explode like that. It hurts to think of you cold and alone. It sounds too much like. She couldn't finish, but it wasn't like that at all. He knew she was talking about his early years. I wasn't completely alone and it was my choice. Jiraiya wanted to be closer to civilization, but I wouldn't let him. I wanted the harsh cold weather and the silence and the barren landscapes. I didn't want comfort and smiling faces because I knew I'd want to come home. That emptiness, that hole that entered me when I left you, I used that pain to become stronger. My suffering was my choice. Maybe because I suffered before, it's the only way I know to become stronger. Naruto stepped back as Hinata swirled around. No, that can't be true, Naruto. Her hands gripped his arms as her eyes stared into his. You don't have to suffer anymore, especially not to train. Hinata could only see acceptance in Naruto's eyes. He accepted suffering like it was an article clothing to be slipped on and off. Can you try and not do that anymore? I don't like Naruto. It hurts. Her hands fell to his waist and she stepped into him. Naruto sighed and held her. He didn't want secrets between them, but at the same time telling her this may have been a mistake. He was used to suffering in some way or another. Like he told her, that pain just urged him forward to the place where he didn't have to suffer anymore, like where he was right now, home with her. I'm sorry, Hinata. I'll try. Naruto knew that's all he could do, but in his heart, he knew there would be more suffering to come. It was his life. She felt awful. Just yesterday she'd been upset with Dad and Mama Tsunade for upsetting him, and here she was doing it too. Naruto was just home, barely 24 hours, and already she was putting demands on him and hurting him. Hinata kissed his chest and collarbone. No, Naruto, I'm sorry. I overreacted. I'm just so happy you're home. She stood on tiptoe, hiding her face in his neck. It's okay. It was bound to come up. I'm just sorry it upset you. We'll find a way for this to work out. Guess this is our first problem as a couple. All things considered, this is a fairly simple problem. Naruto tried teasing her, but it was true. He would try for her to not suffer. Hinata smiled and hugged him tighter. So if we just had a fight, then does this mean we get to kiss and make up? She blinked away her tears and lifted her head. Are all Hyugas this smart? They started to kiss again when there was a knock at the door. Naruto groaned and pecked at Hinata's lips. I was hoping no one would bother us today. Maybe we can pretend we're not home? He looked down at her, hopeful. Silly, everybody knows you're home. Let's just see who it is, then politely send them away. I'll tell them we're sick. Hinata giggled and pushed him to the door and stood behind him, since all she was wearing was one of Naruto's shirts. Naruto sighed and opened the door, but there was no one there. He looked around, but nothing. He stepped out, then stopped when his foot hit something. For a moment he stared at two men lounging against the building across the street, but he didn't sense any ill intent from them, and besides that, Hinata was way more interesting than them, especially since she was pressed so close to him. Hinata peered around him, also looking. What is it? She slipped her head under his arm and together they bent down to pick up a heavy packet. A delivery? From who? Hinata wrapped an arm around him, holding on tight. He inspected the package. No name. Hey, get inside. Only I get to see you like this. Naruto flipped up the tail of the shirt and laughed as Hinata scrambled back. He shut the door, not seeing a grinning Jiraiya up on the next roof. Naruto. She huffed with pink cheeks, then snatched the packet away and opened it. Hinata suddenly went very silent as she looked at the contents. A hand covered her heart as she stared. What is it? What's wrong? Naruto hurried to her side then gasped. That sneaky pervert. He took pictures. He tried to take the photos away but Hinata sidestepped gracefully. Come on sweetheart, I don't know what's in there but I know you don't need to see those. Naruto hadn't wanted any pictures taken since he'd been out there to work and he hadn't wanted them to see just how hard he'd been working or the empty places they'd been. Hinata moved over to the bed and sat down cross-legged studying the picture of him and Talon staring at nothing. Tell me what you were thinking. Before her was his life while he'd been away. Naruto would have glossed over the facts to spare her but here were little touches of the reality that was his training. Please? Finally she looked up at him. Naruto stood with his hands on his hips looking disgusted but that face of hers took all the fight out of him. Hinata's wonderful, lovely face so needy and wanting to only to understand. He sighed and went to her. Putting pillows behind their backs and leaning against the wall, he put his arm around her shoulder. That was, oh you want to see too? Talon flew over to rest on his head. Nosy kid. Humor returned to him. Hopefully the old toad hadn't taken any pictures that would worry Hinata. Yeah, this was about 2 days later. Hinata would look from the pictures to his face as he spoke. He'd matured even more. The boy he'd been was hard to find in the man beside her. Naruto had spoken little of his training but these moments captured on paper spoke of another side of him. She would have sworn that she knew all of him but there was still so much to learn. Quietly she listened and looked and admired this new Naruto. Here's Shino. Sorry I forgot about everything yesterday but don't worry it always had air, water and food. See I was very careful. Naruto handed Shino a small cage with a bug the size of a man's thumb in it. It's the right kind, right? Like in that book you gave me? Naruto stood with his hands on his hips grinning with anticipation. Shino's hands shook ever so slightly as he looked at the rare beetle Naruto had found. Just looking at it, he could tell it was healthy and well cared for and pregnant. Naruto you, Naruto, thank you. Shino lifted his head fully out of his collar and smiled at his friend. He held out one hand and clasped Naruto's warmly. Thanks. I've got to take this home and show my father. Sorry, I'll see you guys later. Still smiling, Shino ran off quickly but the cage in his hand was steady for he was carrying precious cargo. Naruto laughed. Anybody ever see him smile like that before? They were at the Hyuga estate in the garden. His day with Hinata hadn't been interrupted and even though he would have enjoyed more time alone with her, he knew the others were waiting to spend some time with him too. So he grabbed his heavy pack filled with presents for everyone then headed to Lord Hieshi's and with his permission, invited everyone over. Okay, that gift was alive so it had to go first. Let's see, next is Lee. Me? Yes. Lee jumped to his feet and moved closer. Thanks Naruto. What is it? Oh, it's heavy. Lee ripped off the lid. He looked confused as it appeared to be a box full of metal balls. Lee was about to question Naruto when his friend reached and picked up a handful of metal. Once out of the box, Lee could finally tell what it was. It was actually a shirt made of weighted metal beads. Well, even though we didn't go to many towns or villages, the places we did stop at had some really great stuff. In one town there was this shop. This place was unique to say the least but when I saw this, I thought of you Lee. You wear it when you're training or in battle. Like your leg weights, it makes you stronger and faster as you train or you can wear it under your clothes like chainmail for protection. Well, that's how it was explained to me. Naruto covered his ear as Lee yelled into it. The guy jumped up and down in excitement, put on the heavy metal shirt then he too left the group so he could go show Guy-sensei his new gift. Is everybody going to leave after I give them something? Naruto wiggled a finger in his ear as he eyed the rest of his friends with mock exasperation. They all laughed and promised not to run off and the gift-giving went on. Tenten received a portable kit containing a sharpening stone, some oil and polishing cloths for her limitless collections of weapons. Tongue-in-cheek, Hinata told Neji to be on his best behavior since now his lady's weapons would be as sharp as the wind. Naruto laughed and kissed her while Neji tried to ignore them. Seems they hadn't forgotten Hanabi's warning from so long ago and were still teasing him. Neji, I wasn't sure what to get you. Pervy Sage thought I should give you one of his books but I thought Tenten might not like that. Naruto said quickly as the girl frowned. So, I got you some other books. Hinata once told me you had a thing about history, so I got a bunch of books on the histories of every place we went. He handed his soon-to-be brother-in-law a stack of books. As he handed them to a bright-eyed Neji, he winked and gestured to the bottom book. It was Makeout Tactics. Naruto nodded sagely and smiled when Neji carefully slipped the book into his sleeve. Sakura, you get, well here. I hope you like it. Naruto handed her a small package and stepped back to Hinata's side. Sakura looked at his nervous face, then quickly tore open the package. She stopped stunned, then her eyes shining like emeralds looked up at her baby brother. Naruto, it's beautiful. She stood and shook out the dress. It was the same shade as her hair and silk. It fell to her knees and it had only one shoulder strap, leaving the other bare. Were you a girl in another life? What about shoes? You know about those too? Sasuke asked sarcastically, earning a punch from Hinata and Tenten. He rubbed his arms but laughed when Naruto blushed. Oh, shut up. My Naruto just has wonderful taste. Sakura, I can't wait to see it on you. Hinata smacked Sasuke one more time before going to the girl to admire the dress. Sakura let Hinata hold it as she went to Naruto and hugged him tightly. Thank you, Naruto. You're so sweet. She kissed his cheek then laughed as the hair tickled her lips. So you're keeping it then? Sakura cupped his face. Yeah, Hinata likes it, so for a while, yeah. Father trimmed it for me. Naruto grinned, remembering the hard look Hiyashi had given him when he'd held the razor in his hand. Apparently he looked scared silly because Hiyashi had had a laughing fit. Okay, on with the gifts. He kissed his sister then went back to his pack. Choji got some exotic foods. Akamaru a huge bone. Well, it was huge when he was small dog, now it was just a snack. Naruto apologized but the dog gave him a wet doggy kiss as thanks. Kiba got books too on different breeds of dogs and the addresses of some of the breeders. Maybe Konoha could get some new types of dogs and expand their four-legged forces. Shikamaru, I want to play you first, okay? You think I'm kidding but did learn to play pretty well. From the depths of his pack, Naruto produced two exquisitely carved wooden boxes. Inside were highly polished ghost stones. He passed them to a shocked genius. Wait, there's more. It's not the one I wanted to get but I could afford this one. Here, solemnly Naruto presented the second part of his gift. Shikamaru was already staring at the stones and the beautiful boxes but his mouth dropped open at the matching wooden go board. It was perfect, simply perfect. He blinked then smiled at Naruto, shaking his head. Can we play now? Never had he thought to own such a beautiful go set. Why, Naruto? You didn't have to. With the utmost care, Shikamaru took the heavy go board then placed the stones in their boxes on top and stroked his fingers over them in appreciation. You're my friends and I wanted to. Shikamaru, you were the first to know. You accepted me. No questions, so consider this a thank you of sorts for that. Naruto shrugged then took the hand Shikamaru offered him. You're welcome and thanks, Naruto. I'll treasure it, Shikamaru said, looking him over. Gon was too happy, overeager kid. Now a man stood before him. He'd chosen to pull his hair back again with the shades resting in his hair. Here was a brand new Naruto. Naruto let go of Shikamaru's hand then turned to his brothers. I think getting stuff for you guys was hardest. Naruto noticed Sasuke looking down at the ground, a pained expression on his face, and Naruto immediately felt guilty. He hadn't meant to bring up painful memories for his brother. Sasuke, so that's why the pack was so damned heavy. Takeshi said, interrupting. He'd been informed of Sasuke's initial reaction to the fox within Naruto. At first he'd been angry and the two of them had had an argument and almost came to blows, but Hinata had stepped in and made them sit and talk it out. Takeshi knew that Sasuke wished that he'd been like Shikamaru and that he'd been there for Naruto without doubts, hate and accusations. Now wasn't the time for recriminations. That was the past, no need to dwell there anymore. So what did I get? Sasuke can wait. He grabbed Naruto in a headlock. Takeshi laughed as Naruto playfully wrestled with him. There was so much power in him, yet he was holding back as they played. I missed you, Naruto. Funny how he'd gotten so used to roughhousing with him. He hadn't realized until now how much fun it was to be Naruto's big brother. Naruto quit playing, unhooked Takeshi's arm and looked up at the man. Yeah, me too. You grew on me pretty quick. He grinned. So for you in your new place, I got you this. Out of the pack he withdrew a large roll of canvas. Open it. Again he grew nervous as he waited for his new brother to unroll the canvas. Takeshi did. Naruto, little brother, she's beautiful. How do you like it, my lady? He laughed at the phoenix's response. Takeshi tore his eyes from the painting of a phoenix. How? By this time most everyone was crowding around behind Takeshi to look at the painting of a phoenix in flight. I met this kid. Man, he had paintings everywhere. I was showing him pictures of you guys and mentioned my big brother loved the legend of the phoenix and seeing the colors you wear, he painted that. What was that for? Naruto jerked away from his brother when Takeshi planted a wet kiss on his forehead. From the phoenix. She wanted me to kiss you on the lips, so be happy that's as far as I went. Takeshi laughed and took back his painting from Tenten. She would like to meet this child one day to thank him for portraying her so beautifully. Sure, we can go one day. Naruto said. I want him to do one of us. He looked over at Hinata with a soft smile. I'd love that. She blew him a kiss then went to Sasuke. Your turn, oh sarcastic one. Hinata pulled him to his feet and was glad to see him smiling. He was better now. The only thing I want is to know is if you succeeded. Sasuke stood before Naruto, a question in his eyes. You would have to bring that up. Yes and no. He looked away from his brother's black stare. What the hell does that mean? Either you can or not. Sasuke scowled. I can and can't. They were nose to nose glaring at each other. You'll just have to see for yourself. Naruto pushed him back. Now take your damn present. When? Show me now. He gripped Naruto's shirt. Am I going to have to hurt you? Hinata asked with her hands on her hips. Later, Sasuke. You two can play later. She was thrilled to see them bonding again. Sasuke was never able to brood for long with Naruto around. Sasuke eyed the girl and sighed. She would hurt him. Soon. Okay, give me the damn gift. He huffed and crossed his arms. Naruto blinked and looked from Hinata to Sasuke, then busted out laughing. She tamed you. You're an obedient little boy. My Hinata's got you dancing like a puppet on a string. He was laughing so hard he fell down. Oh, shut up, idiot. Like you're not whipped. Sasuke wanted to kick him but knew he didn't dare, not with Hinata there. Naruto's laughter was getting on his nerves. It had been a while since he'd heard so much laughter. Stupid little brother. Yeah, but I'm in love with her. It's easy being whipped when it's for love. Naruto wiped away tears. It's so much fun to tease you, Sasuke. I'm not sure that's a compliment. Hinata said, frowning down at Naruto. Sighing, she held out a hand to help him up, then smiled when he kissed it first. Sometimes he was a real charmer. Here, big bro. Naruto dug into his almost empty pack. It actually seems like the right thing now, he said quietly as he looked at Sasuke. Sasuke had changed his look yet again. Black pants with a white shirt open at the neck and a dark blue long coat with a high collar. Naruto nodded to himself. Sasuke eyed him curiously, then opened the small box. Inside was a pair of fingerless, hand protector gloves. He began to nod. He'd been thinking about getting some. Nice little brother. Thanks. He pulled them out, then stopped when he spotted something else in the box. You don't give a guy jewelry, you idiot. Sasuke said softly, but there was no menace in his words. He turned, put down the box, then put on his gloves. Sasuke then picked up the necklace and slipped it over his head before turning back to his friends. A black cord led down to the silver pendant. There was an S and an in, then below it, brothers, all in kanji. Sasuke stepped forward and, to everyone's surprise, hugged Naruto briefly. Thanks, Naruto. No problem. Naruto hugged him tight. He hadn't been sure Sasuke would like it, but he wanted there to be a physical representation of their brotherhood. They broke apart and stood awkwardly for a moment, then Naruto went to his pack again. I got something for father and Hanabi too. I hid mama's and dad's back at her house. They'll get theirs tonight. What about you, sweetheart? I can give you yours now or wait until it's just us. Hinata had wondered if he'd brought her anything. What she wanted most was in front of her, standing tall and looking handsome. Do we need to be alone for you to give it to me? She realized it could be something really embarrassing, especially knowing how much stuff he'd picked up from Master Jiraiya. Nah, I'm just hoping you'll want to thank me, in bed. Naruto grinned at her. Oh, you. Give my present. Hinata hit him in the stomach, then realized she was only hurting herself against those rock-hard muscles. My lady, your gift. Naruto bowed before her, then handed her a large flat box. It another dress. It has to be. That's what it is, isn't Naruto? Sakura linked her arm with his, watching Hinata sit down to open her gift. Yeah, the last one got messed up, and besides, once I saw it, you'll be an angel wearing it. Not that you aren't one already. Naruto said softly, looking at the love of his life. Hinata stopped to look at him. In his eyes, she could tell he spoke from the heart. Excitement and love flowed from him to her. She forgot all about her gift. "Open it. Come on Hinata, I'm dying here," Sakura said, bouncing next to Naruto. The romance between them was always something to watch, but right now she wanted to see this new dress. Blinking lavender eyes, Hinata did as she was told. She had no words. The dress seemed to glow in the bright sunshine. It was pearly white. "For me?" Hinata was crying as she stood. "Beautiful." Takeshi sighed. Sasuke said, "Damn. Whoa." Shikamaru whistled. Akamaru woofed in appreciation. There were other murmurs of awe. The dress was floor-length. The silky creation would fasten behind her neck. A V led to her S with another V below them to emphasize those curves, then it fell softly in a straight line. Her back would be completely exposed, stopping at her waist. Hinata's pale skin, light eyes and dark hair wearing this dress, she would be a sensual angel. "Only for you," Naruto whispered. His heart sped up. "Man, I love this woman." Hinata carefully placed the dress back in the box, then ran into Naruto's arms. She was held tight, then spun around. "I love it. I love you," she said into his ear. "I know." He laughed joyously. "But say it some more. I hope you guys are taking notes," Sakura said as she blew her nose. These two were her hope. One day she wanted love like this. "I remember everything and believe me, I will use it all if I have to. But the clothes thing, that's Naruto's. I'd fail miserably." Shikamaru slouched against a tree watching the couple with a smile. "I'm not that bad a judge of clothing, but when I meet that special someone, I'm taking Naruto shopping with me. With him along, whatever we pick out will be special," Takeshi stated. "Just watching them makes me want to meet a woman just like Hinata. Too bad Hanabi's too young," he said with regret. Sasuke laughed at that. "Well, there are other Hyuga females around, you could luck out." He shook his head. "But will we ever get what they have? That I doubt." He wasn't the only man to sigh wistfully. "You won't know until you try, Sasuke," Sakura said softly. There was still a part of her that wanted to be that woman for him, but lately she'd been spending a lot of time with Lee. Sometime soon, Sasuke needed to make a decision. Finally coming up for air and seeing all his friends watching him, Naruto got an idea. "Hey, wanna go skating? I've got my own personal rink, my treat," Naruto asked, full of life. Hinata plastered to his side. This was turning out to be a great day. Tsunade had cried when she saw Hinata's dress. They had already picked out a wedding dress, but now after seeing the lovely gift, it was decided that Hinata should wear the new dress. She bawled even more when she saw her gift. "Mama, stop crying. You like it, right? I tried to get the size right, but I wasn't sure about the bust." Naruto was beet red. They said it could be fitted, a seamstress or something. He scratched his head and felt so awkward. "You don't have to wear it, I thought you'd like it." MMPH. Naruto found his face trapped in that bust. "I adore it. It's beautiful and I'll wear this to the wedding too." Tsunade wondered what was wrong when Naruto jerked away, then laughed as he heaved in air. "I wanna live, mama. How about I hug you instead?" Carefully he approached her and lay his head on top of her S and gently held her. Better. Iruka and Hinata had a hard time catching their breath from laughing. Soon Iruka got his present. He watched as Naruto approached with a small box. "No dress for me? Not even a suit or new clothes?" He teased his son. Ha, dad. Now you sound like Sasuke. "I can give this to Kakashi-sensei, you know." Naruto stepped back and held the box behind his back. "Kakashi get my gift? No way." Iruka tried to get the box away from Naruto, but his son's moves were too good. Finally he put on the dad look. "Hand it over now, Naruto." Naruto blinked. "Want it that bad, huh? Well, here, dad, I was just waiting on you to really want it." He teased, not giving Iruka an inch but handed over the box. "Mouthy kid," Iruka muttered and took his seat. He glanced up curiously as Naruto dropped down to the floor in front of him. "Must be something good if he wants to see me open it." Iruka lifted the lid. "Oh, it's a watch. Actually, it's more than a watch. See, look." Naruto reached for it and held it up. "I thought it was pretty neat, dad. You can snap it into this band and wear it on your arm. It's leather and it will protect your arm like a hand protector. It's really sturdy, made of steel and waterproof. Or see, dad, you can wear it like a pocket watch and it has a chain too." "You like it, dad?" Naruto looked up at his father. The whole time he'd been demonstrating the watch, he hadn't looked at his father's face. Iruka took the watch from his son with a soft smile. He looked it over. It was simple in design, nothing fancy. It told the time and the date. Easy to read numbers. The body was silver. He turned it over and paused. My favorite sensei is also my dad. Love Naruto. Ah son, I do like it. I like it a lot and I'll always wear it. He was glad Naruto wasn't wearing his shades in the house and he could see those wonderfully expressive blue eyes. Naruto was relieved and pleased that he had accepted the watch. He rubbed his son's head then hugged him when Naruto got up on his knees. Now that he'd surprised his parents with gifts, Naruto was ready to eat. Dinner was enjoyed with much laughter as Naruto told them about his day meeting up with Konohamaru and his friends and teaching them to skate and his friends' reactions to their gifts. Tsunade couldn't wait to see Takeshi's gift, and if the painting was as good as he said, then maybe she would commission one of them as a family. After dinner both parents begged for Naruto to tell them about the pictures. He groused when he learned that the old man had given Tsunade a set of pictures too. He muttered disgusted about Jiraiya and his sneaky ways, but once again he was unable to resist their pleading and explained about where he'd been and had been doing when the pictures were taken. Like Hinata, they felt closer to Naruto afterwards. His time away now had meaning. Yes, the letters were helpful, but to look into his blue eyes and watch the expressions on his face as he told them some of what he'd endured. The bond between him and Jiraiya had grown and his absolute love for Talon was so like that of a father to a child. Uzumaki Naruto was much more than the teen he used to be and yet still was that same teen. Naruto, Jiraiya spoke to me today about how your skills have improved. Tsunade said as she next to him on the couch. So he did more than drop off pictures I told him not to take? Naruto still couldn't believe he hadn't noticed Jiraiya snapping pictures. Almost from the day they'd left to the day they'd headed home, there were pictures. He shook his head knowing he'd either been too focused on training, too exhausted or too busy trying not to miss his family that of course he hadn't noticed a thing. Don't be mad son, we're glad he did. We wanted to know about what you'd been up to and now we do. Iruka studied Naruto and his new look. He didn't look like a child anymore, or a teen. It was going to take some getting used to. Naruto had seen their faces as they went through the pictures. They looked at them so hard and with longing as if to put themselves in the pictures so that they were there in the past sharing those months with him. Don't worry Dad, I'm okay. So what did he say? He threw an arm over his mother's shoulder and pulled her close. He thought, rightly so, that we're curious about your training and how strong you are. Jiraiya wants you to have an assessment test. You're to fight and show us what you can do. Tsunade looked at the strong line of his jaw. Yeah, we talked about it some on the way home. Sure, how about the day after tomorrow? I want another day to really sleep and rest, then I can kick, whose ass? He looked in question at his mother. You won't see much if it's just one person. Naruto was matter of fact about this. Hinata smiled. She sat curled in a chair facing them. It was nice to see mother and son together. But she was also smiling at the confidence in him. Naruto wanted to show off, some things never change. Oh really? Well, he suggested several people, actually, more than 5 for you to fight at the same time. Now what do you have to say about that? Tsunade asked, wondering if Naruto would be intimidated. Just 5? Okay. Naruto shrugged. It's a good thing we spent that time in Suna. I was out of practice fighting more than one opponent, although Jiraiya is a tricky bastard to fight. Did you really always beat him, Mama? Naruto asked, genuinely curious. The stuff he knows, I was only able to really get him twice the whole time and that was pure luck. Man, I wish could really take him down, you know? Knock the old man on his ass. What? He looked from Iruka's wide-eyed stare to his mother's mouth in a shocked oh, what? Sweetheart, what did I say? Hinata shook her head. I don't know. Dad? She reached over and shook him. You actually beat him? How? What do you mean when you say you beat him? Iruka scooted to the edge of his seat. It was luck like I said. I'd finally got Mama's move down then went at him with a roundhouse punch. Of course he thought it was a normal punch and was teasing me. Naruto grinned. He was out of it for almost an hour. He wouldn't speak to me for 2 days. He laughed. Now that would have been a great picture. And the second time? Tsunade asked, knowing she'd have to ask Jiraiya to be sure. Either Jiraiya was getting slow in his old age or Naruto was definitely getting stronger. Can't tell you that one. I used a new move on him. Maybe you'll see it at the test. Naruto yawned. I can't believe how sleepy I am. I even took a nap today, didn't I, Hinata? They'd skated for a couple of hours, then the group split up. He and Hinata had gone home and he hadn't lasted an hour before he dropped off. Yes, before coming over here, he conked out for almost 2 hours. You wore yourself out while you were gone and now you can finally rest. It's only natural, Naruto. Maybe we could put the test off until next week. Hinata uncurled her legs and sat up. There's no rushes there? She wanted to see what he learned, but at the same time she wanted him rested. Naruto looked at her. Hinata was worried about him. It made him feel special. Mama, the test will be the day after tomorrow. Love you. He pulled her close and kissed her forehead. Let's go home, sweetheart. Naruto got up and went to Iruka. You're off tomorrow, right? Let's go up to the hot springs. I need to recharge my batteries. I'll come by your place first thing in the morning. He held out a hand to his father, wanting to see the watch on his arm. Iruka looked at the hand, then he took it. It's been a while since I was up there. Sure. Using his grip on Naruto, Iruka pulled him close for a hug. Hinata sighed and went to kiss Tsunade goodnight. He can be so stubborn. He gets that bossy attitude from me. Tsunade told her with a smile and wondered at the girl's laughter. Father and son had breakfast together, then went up to the hot springs. Naruto got a massage, then soaked until he thought he was going to dissolve. He told his father a bit more about his days away, more than he would ever tell his mother or Hinata. He shared some of just how hard it had been, Jiraiya's perverseness, the weather, and missing them. Iruka listened and shared Naruto's pain. When he was done, he told his son every crazy, weird and funny thing that had happened while he'd been gone. Iruka had these stories because it had been his homework for the last 6 months. Somehow he'd known Naruto would need them and he'd memorized everything he could that would make his son laugh, and laugh he did. Smiles were on everyone's faces as they listened to Naruto and Iruka's laughter. They were back, father and son. The time lost, forgotten. It wasn't only Naruto who recharged his batteries but Iruka as well. In the hot springs he finally relaxed. From the moment Naruto had been gone, he'd unknowingly hardened his heart as well as his body. By the time they left, skin rosy with health, bodies relaxed, both were ready to face anything. The assessment test would be a piece of cake. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.